Everybody ready? Call this meeting to order. Please call roll.
Quigley.
Here.
Ms. Taranto.
Here.
Ms. Knapp.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start off with agenda changes. Trustee Taranto, do you have any changes?
No.
Trustee Knapp.
No.
The only modification would be under 7, old business. Remove D, website proposals. We're still waiting on one more.
I'm sorry, I apologize. It makes more sense for the clerk agenda to have A just move down to above the purchase orders. The North Road discussion should occur before that. So we can either switch A and E or just move A down.
I'll just say move A down to E, move everything else up. Any other changes?
No.
Before the agenda is approved as modified. Moving on to public comments regarding items not otherwise on the agenda. If there is any public comments, please come forward, state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Jim Hagan. My address is 7851 Maple Grove Drive, Lewis Center. I'm here as president of the Woods at Vail Canyon Homeowners Association. We have had an ongoing problem for about the past 5 or 6 years about the cul-de-sac, Okalea Court, and the island at the south end of it. This is, allegedly we understood that the Nicoya Homeowners Association had taken responsibility for maintaining it, taking the brush out, cleaning it up, keeping it nice. They weren't doing it. This went on and on and on, arguing with them. About a year ago, I got hold of Beth Hugh to say, would you please go down and tell these people that if they have agreed to this with the township, they have to maintain it. Ms. Hugh, would you like to make any comments in your experience with the people you talked to?
We sent a letter after Mr. A contacted me. I told them that they needed to address the cul-de-sac, or the township would address the cul-de-sac, and that we had really no need for an aesthetic plant material in the cul-de-sac. We were pretty much utilitarian. They did address and trimmed a lot of the court up, but it seems like they really only addressed it that one time to do anything at all. And even then, it wasn't manicured, but they cleared a lot of the area, and they seemed to have sprayed most of the poison ivy that was in the cul-de-sac.
Thank you, Beth. The issues this has gone on since Ms. Hugh was there, talked to them, is that they haven't maintained it. Weeds are growing. There's a huge dead ash tree there that could fall on people or vehicles. I started doing some research, both with the Nicoya Homeowners Association and with Tom Farahay to check records. Well, Nicoya has a unique situation with the 6 residents or 6 homes on Okalea Court. They aren't really part of the association. They have a rock out there on the island of the cul-de-sac. It says Nicoya, but the people there don't pay dues to the association, don't participate in it. So, gee, if they're not part of it, how could the association have agreed to this? Mr. Farahay checked the records. There was no record with the township of any such agreement regarding Nicoya maintaining that cul-de-sac. Nor is there a record of it with Nicoya Homeowners Association. By comparison, in the Woods of Vail Canyon, we have an agreement with the township because we have cul-de-sacs with islands on Maple Grove, on Hidden Meadow, and on Glen Oaks, which we pay to have maintained, mowed, weeded, taken care of. So now that I found out that Nicoya and the residents there have no involvement in it, it is technically public property. It's part of township right-of-way. You can't have an eyesore like that as part of public property, in my estimation. When I spoke with Beth a year ago, she had discussed with the people there that if you don't clean it up, let's bring the bulldozer in, clear it off, and put some rocks down. Well, aesthetically that wouldn't be a good thing, but it is township responsibility to maintain it. Now that we've clarified the issue as to who is responsible for it, there are certain methods of going forward. The township could say, okay, clean it off and it's our problem, we'll take care of it. Or I could negotiate with the 6 homeowners or 6 residents there and see if they would pay to have it maintained. Actually, of the 6 homes there, one is vacant, it has been for about 1.5 years. Another one, the resident is planning to move shortly. Another one, the family doesn't speak English. Only one of them participates at all in doing anything. He goes out and weeds and pulls down some stuff once in a while, but it's got brush down there, weeds, limbs on the ground. It doesn't look the way it should for a public area. So what I'm going to do is go to the people there and give them some options, saying, we with the Bale Canyon hire a landscape person to mow our common areas, maintain our cul-de-sac islands, weed them, clear them off, keep them looking nice. If you want to participate with that provider, this is what it will cost you a year. They pay no dues in the association now, so if it costs them each $150 a year to maintain that, that would be their prerogative. If they say, well, no, we don't want to do that, well, we like nature. We like to see it just the way it is, very natural. Well, that isn't acceptable to me, and I don't think it's acceptable to the township. What you saw there, was that acceptable to you?
The conversation that Mr. Egan and I had is, I think that the timing of this is perfect because it kind of ties into the tree discussion that we have on the agenda this evening. We do maintain other areas like Bale Canyon, but they're usually along roadways. We don't have a specific situation where all the other cul-de-sacs in the township are typically very manicured. This one is not. And so it kind of falls within a gray area of a cul-de-sac that we typically consider should be manicured, but if the township is maintaining it, we wouldn't manicure it. So I think that their best option is to, in my opinion, work with Mr. Egan to have something done with the cul-de-sac, because the township would not be able to maintain it in its existing plantings. It would need to be removed.
So again, thank you, Beth. My plan on it is to go to the homeowners and say, here are your options. You can hire our provider to have it maintained. You can do it yourself, which you've had the opportunity to do and haven't done. Or the township can take it over, bring the bulldozer in, just clear it off and put down some rocks.
Has either homeowners association approached them about joining?
Nicoya did. Nicoya only has 10 homes over off Nicoya Court. And I think they pay $400 a year per household to maintain their common areas. The people on Okalea didn't want to participate in that.
Okay. Such a beautiful neighborhood.
So they were given, how would you call it, complimentary participation in the homeowners association. They didn't participate at all, but they had the rock up there with Nicoya written on it, or actually carved into the rock, and they aren't really part of it. Tom Ferry provided me all the zoning background on it, and it doesn't really mention Anything about the cul-de-sac?
Jim, when was that property rezoned?
14 May 1987.
Do you have any pictures of the cul-de-sac at all?
No, I didn't bring them. I figured that Beth would be able to say it was a mess. It's not as bad now as it was then, but it's now growing back with weeds and branches and just not what you want to have in a residential neighborhood.
So you live in Woods of Bale Canyon, right?
Yes.
Right.
And two of our residents live on Okalea Court in the Woods of Bale Canyon that see that all the time.
Okay. So they're actually on the court and they must back up to towards the rear of the court?
Yes, as you go down Okalea, the two homes on the left and the one on the right are part of Woods of Bale Canyon. Then the other homes back there are nothing.
Okay.
And therefore the property is township property.
And how long, you said it used to be maintained pretty well?
No,
Or it's always never been maintained?
never been maintained.
Never.
There's always been a complaint, that our people from Woods of Bale Canyon have always complained about the appearance of that. And at this juncture, there's one huge ash tree.
How big is the ash tree? Do you have any idea? That's the trunk?
Yeah, it's 100 feet tall or something like that, and it's dying out, so it's going to fall on something shortly.
If the tree was gone, is it something that could be mowed with the big mowing machine?
Yeah, if you took out the rock that says Nicoya on it, took out the tree, there's some other trees there that are not bad,
Yeah.
but you could put in ground cover to make it look nice. What I'm going to try and do is talk to those people individually and say, here are your options. Either you pay to have somebody take care of it, obviously you haven't taken care of it, or the township will handle it.
So it would need to be mowed and completely landscaped. So what do you think the likelihood is if they're not caring for it now, that they're going to be interested in paying for it?
I just want to give them that option
Yeah.
before it comes back to the township, and you have to spend taxpayer money to bring it up to scale.
Because I mean, I'm glad that you're going to try that, but we do have some other grassy cul-de-sacs in the township, a few. And I think at an earlier meeting, maybe last year, Ms. Hugh had said we could bush hog those or something, like when it gets to be a certain height, you would cut it down every 2 weeks or something, just because it was technically in the right of way, and it wouldn't look very attractive, but at least it would be cut down.
The aesthetics between the township maintaining that cul-de-sac and an HOA maintaining that cul-de-sac are night and day.
Right, but no one's maintaining it now, so I'm just coming up with a secondary option. That is correct though, right?
Yeah, the weeds are, probably about 2 feet high now, but they get worse and worse and worse.
Because usually neighboring property owners will take it upon themselves to mow. Like, we have two in our neighborhood and people do, but someone had approached the township about taking care of it, but it's just grass. But I guess they could mow it once it got, how tall does it have to get before you would mow it?
We mow approximately every 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
Well,
That would be the
this isn't
option.
grass.
Yeah, it's
Lisa.
not, it's just a mess.
weeds and junk.
Well, I know that.
It's a wooded area. It's shrubs, it's vines, it's the ash tree, some other smaller trees that have just kind of a nature area that was cleared off for the cul-de-sac, but whatever was not disturbed in the center there is still existing.
Is it big? It's a pretty big cul-de-sac.
Actually, it is. It's one of the larger islands I've seen, almost as big as the width of this room. Not quite. I'd say from the end of the table there to the wall, circular.
Right.
It has a lot of character.
I mean, it could look nice without a whole heck of a lot of work to be
But
done.
it's always looked bad. You've lived there since what, 84 or
No, 91.
91?
It
That's
didn't
when your
exist in
subdivision was
84.
built, I think, 84. So it's always been bad since you've lived
Yes.
there.
And even before I became a township trustee, I was president of the association and had talked to the people over there to try and do something, but they just shrugged it off. A lot of them have changed over the years. This house, some of the houses sold twice. But I guess my last comment to the board on this, I will get to them and try and see what they will do or not do, what they'll commit to. If they just say nothing, we'll leave it the way it is, I'll advise the board, or I'll advise Ms. Hugh, and she may make whatever decision the board or Ms. Hugh decides upon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll give everybody an opportunity to think about it. And,
Take a look at it or something like that. It's not as bad as it has been in the past, but it's getting bad again. And it's township property and township responsibility at this juncture, unless they wish to take some of the burden off the township. And I think the Nicoya rock should be definitely removed in any event. Any other questions from the board?
Thanks for working on that for us.
Okay.
Just keep us posted.
thank you, Jim. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for your time.
Is there anybody else present that would like to public comment?
Respond to that.
Please come forward, state your name
Yes.
and address.
Yep. My name is Ray Strutner. I live at 7761 Okalea Court. And like Paul Harvey, this is the other side of the story, okay? What he says is totally fictitious, honestly. This issue has been coming up for like quite a few years. When it came up maybe 2 years ago, there's one person on the cul-de-sac that's not in Nicoya that has a problem with our island, so-called island. And incidentally, there's 5 people in that cul-de-sac, not 6. 3 of us are here. The 4th, as he called, doesn't speak English. He does speak English. He's an Indian architect, construction. He has his own firm. Anyway, the other house is for sale. This cul-de-sac is designated originally as natural. I talked to the developer, Ron Abrams, in Florida tonight, or this afternoon, and he says that was designated as natural, and that's what the records show. A couple years ago, I went and talked to Dick Gladman when this issue came up. Dick Gladman looked at the records and says he remembers the developer talking about it, and he says this is designated as natural. The weeds are not that high, and this elm tree isn't that big. It's that big. You know, everything he says is exaggerated. We want to keep it the way it is. We maintain it. We received a letter from Beth a year ago and said for line of sight and safety reasons, we should have some of this undergrowth removed, which these guys did. I'm in Florida, so they did it. Anyway, the last thing we want to do is be tied to Woods of Bale Canyon, because we have our own documents, our own restrictions. We aren't allowed to build swimming pools. We aren't allowed to put fences. We aren't allowed to put outbuildings. It's a very restricted area, this Nicoya. This island has a big stone or a rock there and says Nicoya on it. And according to the developer, that is where the Woods of Bale Canyon stops, and the island becomes a part of the 5 homeowners in that area. So we are responsible for maintaining it, and that's what we do. And I wish somebody would have a picture of it right now. What he says is exaggerated, as I say. It's nothing like that. It's not weeds and poison ivy necessarily. There was some poison ivy in there. It's just, it's a natural setting. I own a property there on a woods and ravine. I don't have a lawnmower. I don't have grass. I don't want grass. Almost all 5 of us are that way. One has a little bit of grass or whatever, but it's designed. We bought it. We built it. 20 years ago, I built my house, and we built it so it was natural. We wanted it natural. We aren't allowed to have cement driveways. We have to have brick or asphalt. It's a very restricted area. We want to keep it that way. Okay. Thank you.
sir. Appreciate
Thank
it.
Sir, can I ask you one question?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Do you think in your opinion, then the major problem is maybe the dead tree? Is that a problem?
If that's a problem, I've had two taken out the last year. This boar has got ash trees, you know, and on my property I've taken two out. I'm not sure whether if there's an ash tree. If there is, we'll probably have to take it out.
But the other trees are in good shape?
Yeah.
I'll drive out and take a look at them.
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful if you did. Just
Yeah.
take around the cul-de-sac. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward, state your name and address.
I'm Frank Babish. I live at 7750 Okalea Court, right in between Ray and Mike. I've lived there 18 years. Ray has lived there the longest. The island has been there all these years. From my understanding with the developer, Ron Abrams, the actual cul-de-sac became deeded over to the homeowners when all the construction was completed. And that's been our understanding all along. It was deeded over with the understanding it would be kept natural. And I recognize that the Abrams are no longer involved in the development. They had sold and moved away. We maintained it ourselves to the level we thought was necessary. We received a letter from the Parks Department last year around July, and they said that it was a complaint, that it was a safety problem. So we went in and we cut the debris down that was in the island down to a stubble. We pruned all the trees up to 12, 14 feet high, so there would be visibility across the island. The island is not flat. The front of the island is sitting about 5 feet above the street level, and it slopes to the back to about 2 feet. And so we went in, cleared it out, and then we received a letter back from the park saying it met all of the requirements of safety.
When was that?
This was July of last year, between, I'm not sure the exact dates, I think it was the middle, July the 14th.
2011.
And we received a letter at that time saying that it met all the requirements. I'm not aware, I haven't been involved in the governance of the township. I'm not aware of any other ordinance saying that any cul-de-sac has to meet this requirement except for safety reasons and visibility. And we met that. Because there are 15 to 20 trees in the island that will vary anywhere from the one that is now dead, the ash tree in the middle, which is about maybe 2.5 feet across. That is the largest tree in the island. From time to time, dead limbs come down, as you would expect with that amount of trees, and we try to periodically, once a month, once every month and a half, go in and clean those dead limbs up. But that's the only debris that's in the center island.
How long has that tree been dead that you know?
It just went dead this summer.
This summer.
Yeah, as many if you go through the neighborhood, it's just like you see just hundreds and hundreds of ash trees that have been hit as it progressed from north to south in the development. And we're all faced with that. I just had a large tree that must be 150 years old, ash tree, right beside my driveway. We actually curved the driveway around it to preserve it. It just lost everything this past winter. Mike even had a tree guy come in to treat that tree in the island. We tried to save it, and of course it didn't work. So we're prepared to take the tree down as it should.
And you are prepared to do that?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And that tree will come down.
Do you have a time frame for that?
I would say within the next 45 days. Before fall, we'll take it down before it becomes a hazard. Typically, trees like that, it takes almost a year before the bark starts peeling off and the limbs become a problem where they start breaking off because of the weather. So it's nowhere close to that at this point in time.
So maybe, is that the primary eyesore, do you think, the dead tree?
If you drove through Orange Township, you would see eyesores the whole way through because of the dead trees. I don't consider it an eyesore. It's just a problem.
But you're going to take it down. So.
Yeah, that we have to deal with. It's just a large tree with no leaves on it.
Right.
But we've maintained it. Right now, I know as I have a little patch of grass, very little. Ray has 0 on his lot, who just spoke. Saucy, who has his own architectural business, he has no grass in his. Mike has a little more than all of ours. And we will run the mower. I think we're the only two that have a mower. We'll run it around the outer edge and the rim to make sure that it's kept trim. And we do that at least every 3 weeks, somewhere in that time. So it's not being neglected. And again, we don't feel that it is an eyesore. The stone that marks Nicoya, that's original part of the development. I don't know of any requirement that we belong to any home association. I'm not aware of that. So if we choose not to belong, that's our choice. But it doesn't change the fact that our neighborhood is still Nicoya.
So it's always been unmaintained?
Yes.
You're saying, so maybe it was what we call now unmaintained passive open space probably. It's just probably
The highest thing on that island right now are 2 reeds of grass, ornamental grasses that are on either side of the Nicoya Rock.
Okay.
And those are just ornamental grasses, but they aren't a low line of sight hazard.
Did anybody check with the auditor's office to see who owns that? Jim, did you say you had, or anyone did?
Property, according to what I got from Mr. Ferrier, is that his township property.
Okay, we can check on that. I mean, because it could.
It's right here.
No, I believe, and we can find, I know with Ray talking with Ron Abrams, and I believe he checked, well.
I checked with Dick Guyman a couple of years ago. He looked at the records and said that it was natural, designated natural. I'm not sure about that.
The only thing I'll refer back and is that when we received the letters about maintaining the island, they weren't sent to the township. If the township owns it, then though we wouldn't have received.
Okay, so she would have sent it to the record.
Yes.
Property owner record.
And therefore.
Who got that then? Who specifically got the letter? All of you?
Yeah, it was addressed to all 5 homeowners in that area that are part of Nicoya.
Okay, yeah, and we'll check on that.
Yeah, but it was addressed individually to all 5 of the homeowners on Okalea Court. And as a result, somebody had to research it, that why would they send us a letter if it belonged to the township and should have been maintained all along by the township. So that's the information that I have. And Mike, do you have anything further to add?
Yeah, we're not going to make a decision tonight, so you know.
But we all I can tell you, there's no complaints from the 5 homeowners that own around Okalea Court. And our understanding is that there's one person on the street that has had a problem with it, and has had that problem for probably the last 10 years.
Okay. Thank you.
One thing, if you would like to talk to the developer, the original developer of the property, I have his telephone number if you would like that.
If you could.
Yeah, I will give that to you. He said he'd love to be here tonight, but he's in Florida.
And what will matter ultimately is, of course, what was approved in the zoning plan and the property ownership, but that would be useful.
Mr. Hagan, did you have something else to say?
Yes, just at the time letters went to the residents there, I think you sent letters out. You was our understanding that that was part of the Nicoya Homeowners Association. The letter went out on that basis, that they had an agreement with the township to maintain that. And the letter went out to enforce that agreement. As we've done further research on it, the property does not belong to the Homeowners Association, nor is an agreement in effect for them to maintain it. It is totally township responsibility from a legal standpoint. So if they maintain it, fine, just like there's no agreement to dictate that. So if these gentlemen decided not to do anything, it wouldn't get done. It's a township responsibility. Overall, it's a township responsibility because it's public property.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. We'll do our research and find out a little more details of what we described here from a zoning perspective. Any other comments? Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, the zoning report. As always, there's a list of upcoming zoning hearings over there at the table. Please feel free to go review that. We'll move on to the maintenance report. Trustee Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the street sweepers.
Just to give an update on street sweeping, as of the 17th, they've completed in the commercial areas, Owen Field, Green Meadows, the commercial areas, Olentangy Crossing, High Meadows, residential, Green Meadows residential, North Orange, Hidden Cove, Willow Springs North, Bryn Mawr, and Olentangy Crossings, and they're still continuing. That does not include all of Fridays or today's, so they're moving along. I've not had any calls or complaints or anything. It seems that people we've gotten the word out, we've put the signs out. We're trying at least 24 hours before the street sweeper gets there. He's in contact with Aaron on a daily basis, so we know what was completed so we can move the signs around. And it's going pretty smooth.
Great.
And it looks good.
Did you have any issues with people not moving their cars?
Yes, in High Meadows, Green Meadows, there were several that didn't. Actually, some of the signs were picked up and thrown into the streets, but we just did what they typically do, and if there was a car in the middle of the street, they just went around it.
They went around it.
Yeah, hopefully next year the neighbors can apply a little bit of pressure and we'll be able to sweep the entire street. But we understand that neighborhood, they're used to parking on the street. There's a lot of cars on the street, so.
Yeah, and our homeowners association did send a notice out, so thank you for.
Right,
that.
I contacted all the HOAs and asked them if they have a newsletter or a website or mom's group or anything to get the word out that, we will be signing it, but to kind of pay attention to those signs and look for them so that they know when not to park. And we purposely tried not to put out signs, more than 24, 48 hours before they're ready to be there because they just forget, so.
Okay, thank you, Beth. We're going to accept the reimbursement for the sign damage on Owen Field Drive. We did get the check from the resident.
We did get the check. It has not been deposited yet. We just got it on Thursday or Friday.
Anybody have any questions before I read the resolution? No. I move the adoption of the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio accepts payment of $72.35 from Catherine M. Rindos for damage to a speed limit sign located along Owen Field Drive, TR 596.
Second?
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The next item is the ODOT public input on the long-range transportation plan. Well, we just got a notice from ODOT that they're working on their Ohio Department of Transportation. It's being updated. It's Access Ohio 2040. And they're seeking public comment on the plan. I just wanted to get the word out that there's a survey on customer preferences for the future of transportation in Ohio. is currently available on the Access Ohio website. That's at http://access.ohio.gov. It's in a number of locations to be reviewed. The closest is probably District 6, which is what we are in, is Orange Township at 400 East Williams Street. And it's also available at MORPC, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning, on 111 Liberty Street, downtown Columbus. So that's just kind of some information if anybody's interested in the township and commenting on that or reviewing that plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The last item on the maintenance report is a purchase order for Electrocom. This is $7,795. This would provide card readers for all of the offices at Township Hall.
What is a card reader?
It's a card reader. It's the card reader like we have out here, out front. It would have access to everyone's card. It would keep track. It was my understanding what was requested for security for the building.
And who requested that?
About a month ago, I asked Ms. Hugh to look into it to see what it would cost to add card readers to the doors within Township Hall, just to get an idea from a ballpark figure of what it would.
So I think I asked for key card access to the fiscal office back at the meeting on June 4th, but nobody seemed to be interested in that. I just wanted to know what had changed.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think we really, just my view is that, we have a very secure environment where you have to have a key card to get in the building, and we have keys to access the offices. So, if individuals are, accessing at nighttime, we know who's coming in the building, and it wasn't necessarily a thought that we really need to increase the security. And honestly, I really don't think we really still need to, but it's something that has been brought up, like you said, Trustee Knapp, and so we wanted to look into it, see what it would cost.
So why are you interested in it now?
Because it was brought up, so we wanted to see what it was cost.
Well, this started back in June for the request, and Electrocom came in and looked at all the doors, looked at all the panels, did an evaluation of what would be needed, and then it took them a while to put the quote together.
So how many doors is that then? Would this cover every single office in this building, or?
All the offices. It's 3 access control modules, which they can run 2 doors, 6 HID bit proxy readers. That's the actual reader, so it's 6 interior doors. And then there's door strikes and batteries and reader cable and a complete quote that was provided.
Is it just for Township Hall?
Just for Township Hall.
And who gave the quote?
Electrocom.
Are they the ones that do our current alarm system?
They're the ones that we've been using for North Orange Park and Township Hall.
Okay. Did you get the quotes? Was it you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you contact any other companies, or are they the only ones that do that? Or?
They're the only ones that do that. It's the system is Simplex Grinnell, and we've not been using them here or at North Orange. I believe Fire still uses them. Electrocom is the only company that we found that has knowledge of that system.
In other words, to that point, is that it's either you upgrade the current system because it was pretty much proprietary, or we go out and rebid to replace the entire system, which could be very expensive.
Correct. And we've gone through that question with Electrocom over the last 2.5 years with the issues that we've had, and we've found that Electrocom has been able to provide us with better solutions and less expensive solutions than Simplex Grinnell. And like, for example, Simplex Grinnell came in and they wanted us to buy a new master board for North Orange. We replaced a battery, and so far it's lasted.
So how old is the system that we have now? As old as the Township Hall?
I don't, it was installed way before I got here.
Has anyone done like a comparable, like a price comparison between another company just coming and redoing the entire system?
There are parts and pieces that could be salvaged, but basically the readers in the basement need to be replaced along with the reader, the control modules with the readers, because they work together.
And then who would administer this system and the key cards? Shirley or?
That wouldn't be my call.
It's still the same system that we're using, so. it'd be
It's
through-
my assumption it
Yeah.
would be the same as what it is now.
Right. It's just adding on to it.
So it's $7,795. I think our security system here is getting to be a little bit on the old side parts of it. Possibly as old as from 2000, whenever I think when we moved to this building. I know we've had some new parts, but I would suggest maybe getting some comparable quotes for maybe a new system. I'm not ready to authorize that yet. But I do appreciate you looking into it. I think it's a really good idea.
You mentioned one time that you did have some preliminary calls out to some,
We'd started to look at some numbers before we found this electrocom company.
to replace the system, because I know it's come up in the past.
Right. To be honest, I don't remember
Okay.
if we got numbers, they were
That was
so
at the time,
high that
which
it
would have
was
changed by
just
now.
kind of,
Right.
it probably would have changed, but they were just kind of so high that we thought not even worth presenting, because they were just kind of outrageous for, you know, the two doors that we have card readers for here now.
Right.
So I think it would be nice to have a card reader where you swipe in and out. You know, you have to put your code in on the way out. I think it'd be really great to have one that could use your card at all times.
Still keeping in mind that we want to try to keep the costs low, because I'm not sure, if, you know, from a security standpoint, I think we're doing pretty good right now.
I think the system is doing what it's been designed, to my knowledge, to do. It's not the most convenient system, but it functions.
Right. But to Trustee Knapp's point, if we could, just go ahead and get a quote for maybe a replacement, see what it would cost.
Yeah, because sometimes like retrofitting something ends up being a lot more expensive than starting fresh, but I haven't looked into it.
The
so.
cost of this system is in the fact that the type of doors and locks that we have, they're mortise Yale lock sets. That's very expensive. They're solid wood. They're not easy to core to get the electronics into the door and into the frame, like a hollow metal door would be. So most of the cost is really the construction of the building. But I'll get a full, complete replacement.
Could you have that by next meeting, possibly?
I'll do my best. They're not the quickest on new.
No, I understand.
Can we put, like we discussed before, can we put something on the listserv, like a request for quotes from maybe there's a local company that might be interested in doing it?
When we talked about this a couple years ago, and I don't want to put words in the assistant chief's mouth, but we weren't happy with what was happening at North Orange. We were having issues with security, with the doors, and no one here, and surprisingly no one at Simplex Grinnell, really knew the system that we had very well. It is a little bit antiquated. The fire has the same system, and they're not having any issues at all. And so what we had started to look at was replacing all of the township systems so that they were the same, and that's kind of where the cost really started to become prohibitive. Would we want a different system for Township Hall than what we have at North Orange and Fire? So am I getting a quote for Township Hall only, for Township Hall in North Orange, or for Township Hall, North Orange, and Fire?
I don't think we need to be carrying around 2 to 3 different cards, access different buildings. I mean, I think the idea is to have a single system that's controlled from a single point. So either we continue on utilizing the system, as you said, the fire department's not having any issues over there.
No, and that was a couple of years ago when we took a look at that, and that was kind of what we came to was, the fire department, we're not having any issues. Not that we haven't been able to work through as far as with the software.
Right.
and Electricom had come in and they took a look at our system and we went building to building. But I think the determination at that time was quite frankly, nothing really ever came of it.
Right, the pricing from what I remember, fire wasn't really interested, so we didn't really want to change buildings. Like you said, everybody carried different cards, and a lot of us carry multiple cards. So it was just kind of, the numbers were tossed around a little bit, and everybody just kind of backed away, so.
How long ago was that?
Yeah, I'm sure
A
it is.
year and a half, maybe?
What's that?
About a year and a half
Sorry.
ago?
How long ago
A
was
year
it?
and a half, 2 years ago. And if I recall,
I
it
recall it
was
was
pretty
about that.
expensive at that time because they were gonna come in and we'd take everything out, rerun wiring, potentially.
Potentially, we run some wiring.
Put their system in, and we're talking taking a motherboard out of the console, taking the console off the wall and putting all new in so it was their system running.
Right.
And we just really opted for that expense. For us not having any issues, we kind of backed away from that. Fire alarm. So.
Right.
Do we, is it our system here, do we pay a monitoring fee every month?
We have
Yes.
a yearly, at the station, we have a yearly
You're talking about the maintenance fee though, aren't you?
maintenance fee.
Right.
Yeah, we pay Simplex for now,
Right.
an annual fee. It's like $400, I believe. That's just off the top of my head.
Well, could we put something like that on the listserv in case there is a local company that does this kind of work?
I mean, I can't think of any local companies around here, but I mean, we can do that.
Yeah, it probably can't hurt, and if we get no responses, then at least we know.
What's
We
the
did
scope
our
that we're
best.
writing? It's for all
It's for all.
three?
If it'd be a complete replacement. I mean, I know we put the website out on listserv and we didn't get any responses on that one, did we?
None locally.
Not locally.
When was that sent out, the website notice?
In July, June and July, we had on for several weeks, and no responses locally.
Okay, let's move on to the park report.
The first item now will be the North Road parcel discussion. This is really just, and why I wanted to move these is that we have on the agenda then an agreement for task 6 for our surveyors, on-call surveyors, and a purchase order. North Orange parcel, since I've been here, has kind of been held back as a potential site for the community center. On the 27th, you'll hear the presentation for the community center. North Orange parcel was discussed, but was not chosen as one of the final selections or options for a number of reasons, both size of parcel, access, some utility issues, and what the cost to do that type of development would be for that area at this time. The previous information has some information that was, I guess, given to us from the developer. It includes a school parcel that was portioned off. We could use the survey information and things for future grants, trail connections. We're kind of looking at the parcel now, basically, since it's not part of that community development. And there is development going on in that area. There's some trails being built to the west. There's some trails being built to the east. And so the thought is to just get the trustees involved and see how we want to move forward with this parcel. Do we want to develop it? If we do develop it, would it be to some level? Is it just open fields? Are they more developed fields? I mean, it could be anything from just open fields with no restrooms or anything, gravel parking lot, to something like we have at North Orange with developed soccer fields, restrooms, paved parking. At what level do we want to look at that? Do we want to send it to the park board for the recommendations? And this is just kind of to start kind of stirring some future discussion so that we can start looking at it into next year. But for now,
That's my understanding, North Orange Park is strictly for actual games, it's not for practice.
as it's leased to OYAA, OYAA restricts it for game use only because they schedule so many games that it's kind of their decision. Since they have so many games, we require rest periods for the fields. And so if they would just leave it open to OYAA members to practice on, we would end up closing the fields a lot more often, which could affect some of their game schedules. So that no practice at North Orange is OYAA's decision. Since they lease the fields, they control them.
I think from a cost standpoint, because I know right now the budget's pretty tight from trail building and all that. You know, one of the things I thought was looking at, and this come up, we talked about this property on and off the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think ideally, to keep the cost down, it could easily just become an open field. I mean, if you look at what Liberty did with, what was it called, Lavender, I can't remember the name of the park. Lavender Park. I mean, it's just an open field basically, with the parking lot and porta johns. You could essentially just do the same thing. It could be, you know, if OYA wants to go in there and put lines on there or whatever they want to, they could.
Right.
But if we just at least put in a gravel parking lot, something easy, and maybe just go ahead and level it out a little bit.
And we're not looking to develop it. I don't have any budget this year to do it. We've talked in-house that there are some things, grading and things that we could do in-house.
Right.
We do know that there are some constraints on site, which there could be some architectural or archaeological relics, and there could potentially be some wetlands on site. And that's what the EMH&T study is for us to be able to identify that, so that to see if any of those constraints would limit or guide development in one area or another. And so,
well, either that or it's just going to sit there, so.
right, I mean, it's a piece of property that I know that people are looking for fields. They're looking for practice fields.
Right.
OYAA has approached us, although, and Little League both have mentioned, oh, we'd love to do something there. I've asked both for a proposal of, hey, tell us what you want to do, we'll discuss it. But I haven't heard from either one yet. So just something that, you know, this is kind of in the back of the Parks Department mind. It's something that if the trustees are okay with it, we'll take to the next park board meeting to bring up with them for ideas and get them involved for a recommendation. If the trustees so choose, just kind of a thought process that we're being proactive really instead of reactive with a parcel that we have that we now know isn't a good community center site.
Well, I like the idea of the fact that at least we're getting an idea of what we can and can't do there by getting a survey done. And if we did do some, like you said, grading, that might spur some more conversations with OYA and Little League to maybe be a little bit more engaged, something that they might want to do, but at least this gives us a good base to understand what can be done there.
Right.
Because it might not even been a good spot for a rec center anyway, community center anyway, because of the limitations. So
Right.
I think it's a good start to find out what we have.
Okay, so we'll take it to the park board and start discussion, and then we'll talk about the survey in a minute.
Will we move forward now with the survey?
You want to do that next on the agenda then for the what was formerly A, the EMH&T task?
Yes.
This is a task 6. If you'll remember, we did the on-call engineering surveyors. They would, under that, they would be able to survey the property, but if we decided to do any development, we would have to go with a different contract under a different course, because these are just surveyors trail. So EMH&T gave us a proposal for that, and it's $8,159. I think that that's a reasonable cost, and that would give us some exploration into the scope that's defined and help us identify any constraints from a development standpoint to help us guide us with any trail connections or anything like that while we're working in the area and talking about updating the trail master plan next year.
You know, I thought you were going to wait and talk to the park board first, but I didn't think that was necessary. I thought we could move forward on this now, which we are. So we can leave it where we put it, at E, if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just misunderstood what you
Oh,
were
okay.
saying.
I'm sorry. The next item then is to set date for the ribbon cutting for Metro Parks. I spoke with Metro Parks. They gave us a couple different options, and after speaking with my liaison, they can do it on a Saturday, but they can also do a little larger affair on a weekday. And they threw out a couple of dates in September of Thursday the 6th, the 7th, the 18th, or the 19th. And they said, you know, with that they would do something on their homepage website, which we obviously would do as well. They would do a press release. They could potentially get a news station there if the trustees were interested. They would do an article. We would do the actual ribbon cutting, which we typically do anyway. They could have their Metro Park board members there, the executive director, the deputy director, and we could send out invites to TV, radio. And my thought behind doing a little larger ribbon cutting than what we've done in the past is this is a pretty big deal. You know, for us to have done this joint trail connection, it's across an ODOT right-of-way, Powell Road with pedestrian crossing. It's through the commercial site. It connects to High Banks, Premier Metro Parks. And, you know, not only did they pick up the trail with us, but they took it directly to their ranger station. And I mean, there were very few hiccups in the process. I mean, it was a great construction project. It just went very smoothly. It was great to do. And I would like to be able to highlight that a little more than 6 people standing out in the cold like we did at Gooding. Cut the ribbon and get in your car and go home. So, I don't want to blow it out of proportion. It's not, you know.
Okay, so what are those dates that you'd like?
The 6th, the 7th, the 18th, or the 19th of September. And the time would be between 10 and 11 is the times that they gave.
Beth, isn't that trail, the connection out, won't that lead to north and south connectivity in the future?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another point.
Columbus's plan is to come up to High Banks Metro Parks, and so we connect there. And that's part of our north-south connection that would connect High Banks to Preservation Parks, Big Run Preserve that they just purchased.
So not just the joint cooperation, because that was incredible that you guys were able to work that out, but also the fact that that was kind of the missing link between, one of the missing links between north and south.
I'm good on 6th, 18th, and 19th, not the 7th.
You're gonna have to give me a minute. My BlackBerry for work died the other day, so I have to do it via the web. So.
Well, and if you want to, we don't necessarily have to set the date.
Can I get back to you?
If you want to send me what dates you're not available between 10 and 11, between the 6th, the 7th, and the 18th, and the 19th,
Or we can check, we can table it and check over too.
then I'll,
I think you want to get back to him pretty soon.
Yeah.
yeah, oh, I definitely want to get
We
back.
can table at this meeting, right?
Right, that's what she's saying, is that just go ahead and send her an email of the dates that are available for you, or not available, not available, and then she will match them up to find out the preferred date. So of those 4 dates between 10 and 11, if you can't make one of those, let her know. She'll take input from all 3 of us and then provide that back
And then
to
I'll
us.
just send an email with the final date that works for everybody after I contact Metro Parks to confirm it on their end.
Okay.
So you said the 6th, 7th, 18th, or 19th?
Yes,
Between 10 and 11?
yes.
Okay.
So we're going to decide that through email?
For the final date. Next item on the agenda are the resignation of the spot laborers. They're going back to school. You can read the resignation resolution.
I make the motion to accept the resignation of Paul Lewis from the spot labor position effective August 21st, 2012.
Second.
Sorry, ma'am, asking a minor point. Could we possibly add regretfully?
I regretfully accept the resignation of Paul Lewis from the spot labor position effective August 21st, 2012.
Second.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
I regretfully accept the resignation of Ryan Gurney from the spot labor position effective August 14th, 2012.
Second.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes. Did the notice for the open positions go out on the listserv? It did?
Next item on the agenda is to approve the Olentangy Crossing meet dates at Township Hall. For the last couple of years, the Olentangy Cross Country group has held their home meets in the park. They've enjoyed it. I've gotten response from them, and they've treated the park with the utmost respect. There's never any trash. They have people stationed throughout to tell visitors what's going on, and they're more than welcome to stay. They help with traffic down below. It's just, they do a great job.
Is that Olentangy High School?
Uh-huh.
Orange Middle School.
I'm sorry, Orange Meadow.
Any questions?
No.
And how many are there?
3.
3? So that's like 7th and 8th grade? Or?
It's the middle school. We don't have any kids in school. My nephew's in 6th grade. He's considered middle school. So
Yeah, I think the track is
it
almost
depends upon
7th and 8th grade, but there's...
I move the adoption of the following resolution, whereas the Olentangy Local School District, OLSD, has requested the approval of the board for the Olentangy Orange Middle School cross-country team to use Township Hall Park for its home meets for its fall 2012 cross-country season, including meets on August 28th, September 11th, and September 25th. And whereas OLSD has indicated that such use will not require any part of the park to be closed to the public during the home meets, that there will be no interference with the public's use of the paths in the park, and that all necessary cleanup will be provided to ensure that the park is left in the condition in which it was found. And whereas OLSD has submitted correspondence to the board stating the terms and obligations assumed by OLSD in such use and a certificate of insurance evidencing that Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township is an additional insured under OLSD's general liability and umbrella liability insurance coverages. Be it resolved that the board grants a request of the Olentangy Local School District and approves the use of Township Hall Park by the Olentangy Orange Middle School cross-country team for its home meets on the terms indicated below. Be it further resolved that this approval is given on the following terms. The use will be indicated above and not result in excessive damage to the park turf. The use will be in accordance with the terms and obligations of the correspondence submitted by OLSD dated August 2012 and issued by Scott Cunningham, John Betts, and Matthew Ewer. And the board shall remain an additional insured under OLSD's insurance until October 31st, 2012.
Second.
Ms. Taranto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
EMH&T, Task 6. Are there any questions?
I make the motion to enter into a task order and agreement with Evans, Benchworth, Hamilton, and Tilton Incorporated consultant for on-call consulting services, surveyor, engineer in regard to task number 6 issued under the agreement between the board and consultant dated the 20th day of June 2011 at a cost of $8,159, and to authorize Trustee Taranto to execute the task order and agreement, which shall be in the form presented to the board and dated August 13th of 2012.
Second.
Ms. Sorrento?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
We'll move on to purchase orders. First purchase order is the EMH&T purchase order for the resolution just read.
Okay, we're on to the new slide for the swimming pool, correct?
Again, first
The
purchase order for
EMH&T, you need to read the purchase order
She just said.
resolution. We authorized the agreement first, and now this is for the actual purchase order.
Great, okay, thank you. I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to EMH&T in the amount $8,159 for North Road Topo Survey, Task 6.
Second?
Mr. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Nat?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, the purchase orders for Patterson Companies. This is to replace the red slide in the play structure in the pool area itself. There are two sections that have cracks in them. They're not structural, but we've rotated them. I don't think that they're going to make it through another winter. The thought was to, since they're all of the same age and they take significant time to be delivered, that we would order a replacement for the entire slide and start fresh next year with the installation of that. Instead of attaching two new pieces to two old pieces, actually 3 old pieces, there's 5 sections, and then having damage done to that and have to pay shipping and ordering and waiting. A structural crack or a crack in the wrong spot would close that slide.
Right.
So this is for the little kid play area?
This is the red slide
Red
on
slide.
that structure in the pool.
And you said we're not replacing the entire structure, or,
Just the slide, just
I mean,
the
in the
yellow
future-
tube piece.
because we just replaced the whole thing a few years ago, right? Did we?
No, we've not done anything to the slide since I've been here. We've replaced the netting.
But the entire structure is always
I
been
think the entire
same
structure is original.
Any questions?
Do you inspect that periodically?
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Patterson Companies in the amount of $4,667 to replace slide and play structure in pool.
Second?
Mr. Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Nat?
Yes.
Next purchase order is to Telescope Casual Furniture. This is a new company for us. I've looked around and we've just not been happy with the sand chairs that we get. We order them and within 2 years the welds break. We haven't been able to re-strap them. It's just a very difficult chair. We've been buying them retail with some discount. We've been buying them through CPM as well. I've been looking on the web probably for a year. I found this company and they're actually carried at Scioto Valley and Seasonal Concepts for retail. So I called the company and said, I'm a government entity, we have a pool, we buy a lot of furniture, can I be a dealer? Yes. So we can buy wholesale, a better quality chair for just a few dollars more per chair. And so I think in addition to that, the sales rep said he would come and show us how to replace a double wrap strap, which we have not been able to figure out in 3 years, and even Mr. Ray can't figure it out. So I don't know if it has a special tool or technique or whatever, but that alone is reason to go with them because we can salvage a lot of chairs.
There's
So,
a 5-year warranty too, correct?
yes, 5-year warranty on the chairs. And then we're also looking at aluminum tables. We're going to stick with the off-white color to match, but we're going to go with a perforated aluminum tabletop that's all one. It's not 2 pieces. What we have now is a base with an acrylic top, and when the wind blows and those get blown over, even though the acrylic is not glass, it still breaks, it goes into the pool, and that was one of the reasons for not being able to reopen immediately after the storm because the pool had power, but they had acrylic pieces in the pool. So keeping with one piece, it's a heavier table, And then we're ordering some umbrellas that just wear away.
Did the old chairs have a warranty?
I can't remember if it was a year or 2-year warranty, but it was never kept track of which chairs were bought at what time. So there was no way for me to prove one way or another. I think when we get these in, we'll sticker them with our property stickers and identify those. And they're significantly different, so we know when we bought them.
And they're about the same price, did you say? You said $3 more?
The ones that we had been buying were in the range of, I think we paid between $80 and $90 the last time we bought them. They're ranging now between $90 and $100. I think these are $110, if I'm correct. But they seem to have a significantly better weld to them with the 5-year warranty, and being able to restrap them will be just huge as far as the sand chairs. We don't have so much trouble with either the lounge chairs or the dining chairs, but those sand chairs, they're just so low to the ground and the welds are in such an awkward place. When you get up and there's kind of they're often half on concrete, half on the grass, or on the grass and they're not level, so they get a lot of wear and tear.
Well, thanks for taking the initiative to look at that. That's pretty impressive.
And then the umbrellas, going out on a limb here, we've always gone with beige. We're going to go with an Atlantic blue stripe, which has a little bit of orange in it, a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. And so we're going to get a little bit of color in the pool and the furniture.
That's great. Only change colors.
Any other questions?
No.
I make the motion to authorize a purchase order to Telescope Casual Furniture in the amount of $11,000 for tables, chairs, umbrellas at North Orange Aquatic Center.
Second?
Mr. Lanto?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
And I'd just like to point out that by ordering now, we're going with the 2012 prices. They changed in September to 2013, and we're saving over $550. Okay. Next purchase order is to RPO LLC, $36,000 as owner rep. Any questions?
What was this for?
Typically, RPO does an estimate at the beginning of the year. We did annuals for basically what we did last year, and divided it out between Parks, General, and the East Orange Road Fund. We're not spending as much in the East Orange Road as what we had budgeted for. There's some wall issue that's still going on, but there's probably about $24,000 there that will not be spent. And then in the general fund, there's probably about $3,000 that will not be spent there. But I can't move from one fund to another because they're different. And then in Parks, we've done 2 big projects that would be knowing what we know now and knowing what we knew at the beginning of the year were just not possible to project. We try to kind of limit how much we appropriate. So we kind of take a stab at 3/4 of the year at the beginning of the year and then readjust so we don't have a lot of money sitting around. And that's pretty typical, that we do another purchase order starting into fall. The 2 big projects were the community center. That wasn't anticipated, it wasn't known in January. We didn't sign that agreement until May to move forward. And then the ODOT process for the bridge is significantly more than what we had anticipated.
So how much was allocated for RPO for this year, do you know?
Overall, between all the accounts?
Yeah.
It was 112.
So we've run through that, or we still have some of it left?
No,
in the different accounts?
out of that, 29,000 is anticipated to not be needed out of general or East Orange Road Fund. And then, so the addition here of 36 into the parks would be that difference.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Nope. Ready to move forward?
Yes.
make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to RPO LLC in the amount of $36,000 for owner's rep services.
Second.
Ms. Frenchco.
Yes.
Mr. Quigley.
Yes.
Ms. Knapp.
Yes.
The next purchase order is to Pittensbarger Services, Tree Barber in Cando. We'll talk about them a little bit later because they're actually on the county bid list for tree services. As part of that process, I took advantage of having them give me an estimate for 7 trees that are down in the park back here that have fallen kind of precariously and are dangling and need to be removed and dropped. Pittensbarger was the low bid for $1,600.
Any questions?
No.
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Pittensbarger Services in the amount of $1,600 to cut 7 damages trees in nature area at Township Hall. No removal.
Second.
Ms. Frenchco.
Yes.
Mr. Quigley.
Yes.
Ms. Knapp.
Yes.
Next purchase order is for irrigation systems, $3,700. It's for a water wheel for irrigation of the soccer fields at North Orange. We demoed one of these. You basically pull the wheel out and the water pressure itself clicks it back in. We can do North Orange Park in 2 passes of the wheel that we're proposing. The next size up is significantly more dollars, but it's kind of borderline on the water pressure that we have. And this one's flexible enough that if we were to put in a pump at Glen Oak, we could use it there. If we were to do something in the future with North Road, we would have to do some significant water pressure issues at Road to be able to use it. But we do have some options. It's small enough that we can load it on a trailer and it's mobile.
Now, would something like this help, like the situation that you've had over at Glen Oak with getting the grass to take?
Yes. But the pump that we have at North Orange to do that is a significant dollars. If we were planning on programming Glen Oak, which we've talked about the potential of doing that with all of the I-9, the Little League, the soccer programs, that Glen Oak could potentially be a program field, we would probably want to look into that. We have the well there. We do not have the pump that takes the water out of the pond to run the water wheel. And I believe that pump, don't quote me if I come with a purchase order, but I think it's around $7,000 or $8,000.
Have there been issues with the grass? Is that?
Well, right now we drag hoses out with sprinkler heads,
Oh, you do.
and it's very labor intensive, and it leaves hoses on the fields occasionally, and this is just a much more efficient, much more cost-effective way to water the entire field in a shorter period of time.
Does anybody have any questions, comments?
Yeah, seems like a good idea.
Mr. Quigley?
I'm good. Move forward.
I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a purchase order to Irrigation Supply of Columbus in the amount of $3,700 for a water wheel for field irrigation.
Second?
Ms. Frenchco.
Yes.
Ms. Knapp.
Yes.
Mr. Quigley.
Yes.
We're into the then and now purchase orders. The first then and now is for Kelling Concrete, $1,650. This is for Glen Oak Trail concrete work. We've had some issues with some pesky muskrats. They decided to unbridge the land bridge between the pond over at Glen Oak. And so we decided to sharpen their nails a little bit on some concrete and rock. We filled in the area. The trail was just collapsing. They had burrowed down under and was causing water to come in, and so the hole just got bigger and bigger. So we removed all that and put concrete there. And then we also had some issues, which we're not sure if it's erosion or a muskrat issue, down by the boardwalk. And so we put concrete at both ends of those to stabilize those areas. And because of erosion and some issues, the 1650 was split with Park Enterprises. They worked with us very well on that.
Thank you. I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Kellen Concrete in the amount of $1,650 for Glen Oak Trail concrete work.
Second.
Ms. Toronto?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
The next then and now is for cross alert system. We've recently converted the pedestrian crossings from the cameras to push buttons. The cameras were causing all kinds of issues on a number of different ways. The two on East Orange Road, the one out here at Township Hall, the branches would set it off, or the wind. The wind and often I would see like a landscape guy with his truck and his trailer would cut the corner too short and it would trigger the flashing lights. And so a lot of times we're having these lights flash and there's nobody around, and it confuses the motorist to, well, I don't have to stop because there's nobody around, and then when there is somebody around, they're not stopping. So we converted them. Cross Alert worked with us really well and sold us the pedestrian push buttons. Came in at a reasonable price, but when we went to install them, we found that the two sets that were purchased originally for here at Township Hall and down at Blue Holly had old, they've been updated basically, and so they didn't have the motherboard that could handle the conversion to the push button. They were $500 boxes to upgrade, and he sold them to us for $250. So we went ahead and upgraded those. And we're going to put an article in the newsletter talking about the new push buttons. The signs are up, and the push buttons are operational. And hopefully that'll help educate people that when they're flashing, it's because someone's there because they push the button.
Dick Gray, didn't he install those too?
Yes.
That's great. Any questions?
And where were the pedestrian crossing at Orange Road and somewhere
Here
else?
at Township Hall, at Blue Holly, and then Owen Field.
Oh, all three?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. I did get a lot of complaints about those. Owen ones.
I'll make the motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Cross Alert Systems Incorporated in the amount of $2,015 to refit pedestrian crossings with push button operation.
Second.
Ms. Toronto?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The last then and now is kind of a replacement purchase order to David Williams and Associates. The board, a couple months ago, approved a purchase order to Anchor Industries to replace the umbrellas at the playgrounds. I waited weeks, and about after 4 weeks, I called and said, okay, when are they coming? And they sent me an email saying, oh, well, you needed to sign the purchase order and you needed to do this. And about the same day, I was so frustrated that one of the reps from Game Time was up looking at the playgrounds with us. And I said, you know, just haphazardly, do you sell those umbrellas? And he said, yeah, I think we do. So he sent me a quote. It was the exact same amount, and he could get them in 2 weeks. I said, order them. And I called Anchor and canceled in writing and said, don't bother. You don't have a signed purchase order. You no longer have a purchase order. In 2 weeks, they were not only here, they were up and installed. So this, we will close PO number 214-2012 and issue a new purchase order to pay for the umbrellas that have been installed in a timely fashion.
So they are in now?
They are in, yeah.
That's great.
So do I need to close that purchase order?
I've already sent an email to Ms. Martin that this purchase order will close it. The fiscal officer's office closes that. No, there doesn't need to be done by resolution.
Okay. I make the motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to David Williams and Associates in the amount of $2,586. Replacement umbrella fabric for umbrellas at North Orange Park and Roe Park, and 2 support bows for umbrellas at North Orange Park.
Second.
Sorrento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley? Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Just a comment on the Parks Department. We are surveying. They're installing these 4-foot tall, bright yellow pegs like they're supposed to be doing. If the trustees are getting any phone calls, I know that there are a couple of areas, like for example at North Orange, the homes that back up against the soccer fields. To have that 4-foot bright yellow marker out in the middle of the field is kind of obnoxious. And so we've agreed that they'll put them in, the park department will walk around, and if there are places where we can replace that either with a small rock or some kind of an identifying factor that we can see for a line of sight, which is the purpose of those markers, that we'll replace them so they don't have to stare at those. So if any of the trustees get calls, have them contact me so I have their address, so I can keep that on the list of specific markers to look at to see if we can replace those with something different.
Great, thanks, Beth. That was a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. We'll move on to the public safety report.
Good evening.
Trustee Knapp.
Don't have very many things on here. Would you like to go ahead and review them?
Sure. I think first off, 3 thank yous that we wanted to pass on. The first one is from a retired Columbus firefighter of 35 years, who was also a paramedic. We responded to his aid, and he was wanting to thank everybody for our service. And I think as you read through there, was very pleased with the service that he got, and went on to say that we have, I believe, some of the best trained people. So again, thanking us for that. Another thank you from Ms. Wiley, again for our EMS services, and thanking us for that. And the last thank you from Linda Papworth. It's for the Memorial Garden. We assisted them over the summer with going out, taking a grass truck back to water the Memorial Garden for them. And this is a thank you for all of that. So those are the thank yous.
Great.
Would you like me to continue?
Yeah, those are all some really nice thank you letters. Those are some of the nicest I've seen. Yeah, you can go ahead.
The next item is we have some obsolete items to declare. The first one is uniform shirts. Approximately 6 years ago, in our collective bargaining agreement, we worked in to start phasing out non-Nomex uniform shirts and trousers, the pants. Nomex is a fire retardant material, and for the safety and to meet some administrative code issues, we started phasing out the poly-cotton uniform shirts and pants. So we have a lot of uniform shirts, the button front shirts that are the poly-cotton that we've just held over the years that have been phased out. We have some older polo shirts that have faded or have damage to them in the course of duty, and some t-shirts, the same, job shirts and squad jackets. So I believe we've got all the various counts broken out of each of those items that we have down in the basement of Station 361 that we would like to go ahead and have declared obsolete, and so we can get rid of those, take those out of inventory. I don't know if that requires a resolution to do that.
Any questions on that?
No.
I make a motion to designate the following township property as obsolete and no longer fit for public purpose and of no value. The township therefore may discard, salvage, or donate such property or equipment to a political subdivision. Specifically, the items are the following: 173 button front shirts, 160 polo shirts, 25 t-shirts, 26 job shirts, and 9 squad jackets.
Second.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. Tarento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
The other item that we would like to have declared, removed from inventory, and allow us to place on gov deals.
If I could on that one, Chief, I'd probably suggest that we prepare a formal resolution, establish a minimum bid, just as I think we've done in the past with other apparatus and equipment.
Okay, I thought that a resolution at the beginning of the year for gov deals.
That is simply to have the account.
Okay.
That does not declare that, first of all, you wouldn't be declaring this thing to have no value.
Okay.
You're going to want to establish, I would assume you're going to want to establish a minimum bid online, so you're not selling it for $10 by accident.
Correct, and we will.
And so for that reason, I'd probably suggest on this one, we go with a little more formal resolution. I believe we did that with some vehicles, although they weren't yours, I think they were misused. But we've got the resolution.
The one,
Yeah,
there was the one
Yeah.
vehicle.
So if you could give me a call, we can get that together.
Sure.
You know what the value of the truck is?
We could go and have it appraised. I know 4 or 5 years ago, at least, I know that we had an interested party willing to purchase it for about $80,000, and at that time it was declined. So I really don't know that we're going to see that out of this piece of equipment now.
Right.
But we'll go back and we'll work with you on a formal resolution then and bring it back.
Ms. Ross, just make sure it's on the agenda for 2 weeks, next meeting.
Next on the agenda are 2 then and now purchase orders, both for fire apparatus service and repair. These repairs were done during the time that we were waiting to get a new blanket issued for apparatus maintenance and repairs. I believe this occurred about a month and a half ago. So instead of holding up repairs, we went in with repairs. So these POs are actually now then and now. So one was for rear dump valve on the tanker, and the other were multiple repairs to the extra Medic 363.
You guys have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Fire Apparatus Service and Repair, Inc. in the amount of $1,031.59 for repair rear dump valve P362.
Second.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Tarento?
Yes.
I make a motion to authorize the issuance of a then and now purchase order to Fire Apparatus Service and Repair, Inc. in the amount of $5,312.60 for multiple repairs to M363.
Second?
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Ms. Tarento?
Yes.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
One final item that was not on the agenda. Chief arrived this evening and we were sitting back there talking. One thing that we wanted to bring to the attention and get a consensus on from you this evening. We had a request from Olentangy High School girls volleyball team. There are 5 seniors on that team that would like to have a group picture taken in front of one of our fire apparatus. And we wanted to bring that to the board and get consensus and approval, just to make you aware and make sure you were okay with that.
Are you okay with that? I think it's great.
Fine. Okay.
That's fine.
Consensus?
Their season's gonna have a fire theme, so they wanted to have a fire truck in their pictures.
That's great. We see a consensus.
Consensus, yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
You just all dressed up on Monday night normally?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
I used to all the time.
Right.
This is last.
Yeah. I've had a weird stuff. 18.
Not too bad, how are you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, going for a bit, actually. We're getting around to the back. Oh, yeah. Yours are a little more exciting like summer. Normally a little longer. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's nice.
Always have that hope. It's not always enough.
And the response on the other end is, we'll be there in 25 minutes.
I'm good. One of the guys and so I was there and it was 44. I know these spots that are here. House pretty much very permanent, but they got
Yeah. Those are some others. Moving along.
Yeah, I've been here some, I one time I was 6 years old.
That's not the show.
Just depends. But yeah, really, that was yeah. So,
Well, I knew you had a good bid some years back. I had mine wide up there, 25, 30 grand.
it'll be solid.
It's not some madman out there to cheat. Once I think that day should fly.
We really did well at one point, making the opening bid on something. Some percentage of what we expected to get, 50%.
That was a practice thing.
Yeah, I don't know how that was.
Yeah, you guys worked that out.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
We'll get all that
In fact, I had all that.
Well, give me a call then.
Well, but I
We'll see.
If you expect 3%,
We just assumed that.
When you're doing the property, you got 3 different things.
a year, hours.
And we can so if you're doing a property sale, give me a quick call. You want to declare it no value, stamp it out, or do yes, you know, fine, we got one for that, we got one, we got deals, blah, blah, blah. And
I'll shoot this stuff to you.
because pretty much all of them exist, you're not talking about reinvestment.
I'll shoot it to you. So there's gonna be a couple of
Well, now see if I can get something.
Yeah, I pretty much have all of it. I'll shoot it to you. We'll get it down and have it. Okay.
Thanks.
A very wise individual.
Yeah.
Tried to warn you.
We were well, you never know. You never know. That's why you put this.
That's right.
I told you before. I love you.
Okay.
All right, yeah, well, this
Yeah. You guys are on vacation?
Yes, I went to San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
With my family.
Right.
yes. Yes, Joshua. Yeah, it's good. It's like a chase on the place now. I haven't seen him in about a month.
How are you doing? You hanging in there? I'm hanging in.
Yeah.
Do that very often during meetings. First time I saw it, I was like, we were at there having coffee. I kept looking around because everybody's looking at him.
Mary Ann, you ready? Everybody ready?
Daryl, are you hanging in there? Are you hanging in there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're almost there.
I'm not worried about that right now. So. Turn to regular session. Moving on to old business, item 7A, discussion on the playground.
Trying to be thorough, I have a little bit of everything. After exhaustive research back and forth with Miracle, trying to resolve everything, and Ms. Duranto can attest to that, I would like to propose kind of a resolution, at least an interim resolution solution. After the last meeting, I got a quote from Miracle for basically what we've been looking for the last 4 years. It addresses the majority of the outstanding issues. Unfortunately, it kind of shows that they're coming, they're participating, but I'm not sure how much they're hearing. Because the quote includes 4 items that we talked about on site that we've already repaired. So what I'd like to do is propose that we move forward with this quote by revising it for what we have versus what we need. They've addressed a number of issues, including the tornado swing. Mr. Katz and I worked on this for years.
What's the tornado swing?
The tornado swing was gone before I got
Is
here.
it that thing that twirls?
It's been gone for years.
People have been asking for that.
And we've tried to have it replaced. It was broken, and we've claimed it was under warranty. And that was kind of part of the, well, you know, if you're going to look for that kind of dollars, we're not going to talk to you. They are going to replace it with, they're proposing, it's a similar, let's see if I can find it here, a cyclone spinner, which is kind of similar. It doesn't swing, I don't think, out as far as around, but it is a similar piece. It will fit on the existing. They will need to remove some of the surface and pour a new foundation for the post, but they've finally addressed that, and they're doing it under warranty. So moving forward, we still do not have the ADA question answered. We thought we were going to have something on Friday. We've got some information today. It's not complete. So I'd still like to address that because these changes and modifications will trigger ADA compliance on both North Orange and Row. And so I think we still need to follow through on that. We may need to buy some additional panels or something in the future, whether we do ADA swings on the existing, or if that's possible, which I'm still getting mixed answers. I've been told yes, and then I've been told no. So I'm proposing now that we purchase tot swings for the swings, we fill the playground up with the equipment that is missing, and that we continue with the ADA investigation, and once that is complete, then we can regroup and make decisions based upon that report of anything that we need in addition to the playground that we can either budget for next year, install still this year if they're small panels and things like that. And so I think that that will kind of satisfy both the big issue that I've been working on, that I didn't want to break up into bits and pieces because I felt that I lost a lot of my momentum and negotiating abilities by kind of caving and buying pieces at a time. And so I'll give the trustees this. There's 4 items on this list that do not need to be purchased that we've already done. That is the C-springs for the Flippo Junior, the ATV spring rider, the cloverleaf sandbox, and the pirouette have all been repaired and replaced. I have an email for installation from the Miracles installer for approximately $6,500. That includes surface and concrete. I think that's very reasonable. And so what I'd like to do is work with Mr. McCarthy to get one of his perfect contracts that kind of outlines what we're buying, what we're getting installed, what's under warranty, outline that, nail it down, send it to Miracle, and then we'll do a then and now at the next trustee meeting for the pieces that will be ordered at that point.
Now, which changes trigger the ADA? Were you saying all of these changes?
Anything that would work on the surface or change anything on the playground structure. The pods that are being worked on both at Row and North Orange would trigger it. The replacement of the tornado swing at North Orange would trigger that.
It was my understanding if you're just making repairs that it doesn't apply.
The Pondo, or I'm sorry, the tornado swing at North Orange can't be repaired. It's being replaced, so that's a modification. So that triggers it at North Orange.
Because it's a different
structure, and the surface needs to be removed to pour a new concrete piece. And then at Row, the pods that have come out of their concrete base under the surface, they're being replaced with a glider, and that's a new modification with a different piece.
Like a glider where you go across?
Yeah, kind of like a zip line kind of thing, where you go from...
oh, don't we have one of those already there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but anything else would require significant changes in ripping up the surface to pour new concrete pads.
Now, how long, like, my primary concern was the tot swings, as I've expressed a few times. I mean,
I think that, you know, I will definitely tell Miracle that I'm not looking to get everything in at once. Once we play, I do want to bundle everything, but once we can finish that contract, which I think that, I'm not sure about Mr. McCarthy's schedule, but I think that we can still complete this week. We'll get the order in. We'll request the tot swings and anything else that they can send immediately. There's some panels and things here.
So you can't order them this week, or do we?
I think we can order them this week.
What's your discretionary spending amount?
This would be beyond my discretionary spending, but that's why I'm kind of leaning into that with the trustees. If we agree to that now, then you'll kind of have an idea of what the dollar amount is I'm spending. $6,500 in an installation, and I think this comes down to just under $4,000 by removing those items. So there'll be a then and now purchase order between $10,000 and $11,000.
So you could
at the next trustee meeting, and everything will be ordered and on their way. And hopefully, you know, I'll try to have them expedite the tot swings with that.
There's been a big delay because they're the only things that babies can play on in the whole playground. They can't do anything else. And a lot of times the parents come with their older kids and, you know.
Right, and with especially with like the tot swings, I'll talk to Brad tomorrow, see if that's something that, you know, if they don't have on hand, it's something that they probably should. So as soon as we do the purchase order and I give him a number, mail those.
They can do that. And then did you say we're fixed, is this for Grove Park and Orange?
Grove Park and Orange.
Okay. Wow, looks like you did a lot of work. Thank you.
4 years work.
I can see that. That's awesome. I'm impressed.
Sometimes my tenacity is worth it. I'm really happy, and I told Miracle, you know, it's been very painful, but we told them from the very beginning that this is kind of their last shot. And with what they've come back with under warranty, I'm very satisfied with. I think it's a very fair offer, and it covers a lot of.
This time, right? The rep was more responsive, somewhat. No. Your tenacity had to take care of.
Well, there's still some things that we don't have answered that I think could have and should have been answered, but he is working with corporate out of Missouri to get some answers. I think he still has a lot to learn as a local rep to be able to provide those answers. But we are getting some of them just a little slower than what I would like.
And I did look more at the ADA swings again, and they are designed for ages 5 to 12. So infants and small children could not fit in safely into those ADA swings.
The one bucket swing actually has a fairly high weight limit.
Yeah, but for size, because babies would slip right through the light holes.
They have a small rubber strap and stuff with that.
Yeah, well, I want to look at it. Yeah. I don't think they're just, I think we should always have the infant swings, if possible. Thank you.
Okay. Great, so then we'll move forward. I'll get with Miracle and Mr. McCarthy, and we'll get a contract out with that. And I'll go ahead and order those and then come back with a then and now at the next meeting.
Is there a consensus for Ms. Hugh to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Moving on to discussion of trees and right-of-way.
I believe that the trustees were copied on the email from Mr. Robertson. And then I had included a number of points. I don't know if you want me to read those into the record, if we want to discuss those individually, if you have any questions. I do want to state that the maintenance department, whatever the trustees decide, will do as efficiently and as quickly as possible. I have looked at the Delaware County Engineers tree clearing bids. There are 3 companies, Timberland, Oberland, and Tree Barber. I met with all 3 in the past week. Tree Barber is not only the lowest in unit price, They seemed very knowledgeable. When we took them in the back area here for the nature area, they, not only just looked at what we were looking at in a non-salesman type way, they just kind of took Doug and I around and educated us on this and that and parts and pieces and why we would do one versus another. And very interestingly, their climber is a national competitor. So he goes to those lumberjack competitions, which I thought was really cool. So.
And that was tree barber, you said?
Tree barber. Traffic control is not included in this bid price. Tree barber was actually the only one that hesitantly agreed that they would hold to these numbers. They thought their numbers were low. Now that they've gotten into it, they've never done anything with the county. But their initial bids, and the other Oberlin Tree also mentioned this. I can't remember if Timberline did, but their bids for the county were basically for county roads that have little travel, not a whole lot of traffic, and there aren't necessarily power lines on all of them. And so most of the trees that we would need them to be removed would have power lines to them or would be closer to houses. So usually they give numbers thinking, well, we've got some on the low end and some in the high end, and this is the middle number. We're asking for basically all high-end trees to be done at their bid number. So I think traffic control is part of that. I do think that we'll have to get specific quote numbers for different trees, depending upon how entwined they are in the wires or something like that. But for the most part, he looked at the numbers and he's driven the township, and he agreed that he would hold to that as close as possible.
And you talked to the county about why they're taking their trees down?
Yes. John Link had written me a letter that I had set aside with the package, but when I sent the package last week, I'd forgotten to include his letter. I emailed that earlier this afternoon. He mentions that they're just taking down ash trees, but when I talked to him earlier in June when we were starting to talk about this, he said that that when they did the inventory, the majority of them were ash trees, but that he implied that they were taking out at that time all dead and dying trees, not just ash trees. But definitely the numbers are by far the majority ash trees.
So his letter says that the county's that his office had received numerous calls from residents asking whose responsibility the trees were, dead trees that were in the right of way, and it has been his office's policy to remove dead trees that present a threat to falling in the roadway. So that was a point I wanted to bring up, that they don't wait for it to fall and kill somebody or do other damage to take action. They actually remove it if they're if it presents a danger into falling into the right of way.
And I think Mr. McCarthy forwarded to everyone kind of the Ohio Revised Code information. The Ohio Revised Code did have a clause in it at one point that was...
I think Beth forwarded that to you.
Okay.
No, you'll be okay.
You got that?
Yeah.
You might have forwarded it.
I think I forwarded
Okay.
it to the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I think I did forward it. I got it from Mr. McCarthy. I did not write this. The code earlier stated, specifically had the word nuisance to it, which would lead to the potential of something falling. That word was specifically removed in the new revised part that references roadway to be from pavement edge to pavement edge. So even though the township currently does, we don't cut it off at the pavement edge, we remove the tree from the drainage area and from the shoulder from a safety standpoint. but by Ohio Revised Code, we could cut it off at the pavement edge, and that would suffice. But the word nuisance, which refers to the potential of that falling, was specifically removed. And I don't know if the county was going by the old code, or they just decided that the nuisance clause still was something that of interest to them, that the commissioners just decided that that's what they were going to do, and it was based upon several complaints. They also grind the stumps.
Why did they do that? Do you know?
He said that they were removing trees from some people's front yards, and the expectation was to have the stump ground.
How about removed? Did they also remove the tree?
They removed, yes, and they removed the tree. And if it's decided to move forward and remove the trees, I think it needs to be a policy of what's happening to that wood. Does it stay or does it go? And it's not a case-by-case basis, because in the past, I know that the township has had a lot of issues with, if it's a live tree, it's mine. If it's a dead tree, it's yours. But oh, by the way, cut it up into nice 2.5-foot logs, and I'll be happy to burn it in my fireplace.
Right.
Doesn't AEP, when they drop a tree because of the power lines, they leave it? It's the owner, it's the property of the...
No, typically they take it, but the big oak that they cut down here on the park, they left.
Generally, because it has to be cleared out. That's the whole purpose of them doing that, is clearing it out of the area. But that's again goes back to why I say there has to be some type of formal policy of what we do, because it can't be, we're going to do this person one way and this person another way, and it has to be written as a policy so that we have a guideline to follow. So you have a guideline to follow, and that we're not doing one-offs here and one-offs there.
You have any other comments?
No, that's, you know, like I said, if this is something that the board wants to move on, my only recommendation that it should be done formally so that all expectations are ahead, whether it's just ash trees removed, dead trees, where is it, if we're encroaching onto a property.
I think it should only be if it's a risk to the public.
Okay. And that's fine. Whatever it is, have it written down into a guideline for you to follow, and ensure that you have that to reference back, so that when you are approached by a property owner, say, listen, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing for every resident that has an issue, and that's what we're following. That includes, are we removing the wood or keeping the wood, you know, leaving the wood there. So.
Now, how would you determine whether it was a risk? Trustee Turner, what would you suggest? Just if it's dead, that would be kind of hard to determine.
Well, actually, I'm following what you've said in the last 2 meetings, how you're afraid that the trees out front are going to fall on somebody's car.
Right, exactly. But that's actually defining what would constitute a risk would be in this policy that we're discussing, not just that someone thinks it might fall on a car. If you're going to put it in a policy, you're going to have to define it. That's my point. I mean, I can look at a tree and think it looks dangerous, but if we're going to instruct Ms. Hugh on what to do, then we need to be more specific. I guess if it's dead and if it's in the right of way.
Do we have, there might be somebody on the, I hate to say this, maybe put it on the list.
Let's do that.
But we may have an arborist or a professional who could give us the characteristics of when it moves from just being an aesthetic issue to when you would begin to be concerned. What, you know, I would assume there's some kind of characteristics of when it's going bad.
Right, because some trees can partially die but still be leaved, and then you can't really tell without examining it whether it could just topple over.
But it might be useful, you know, since you are trying to find a standard that's credible. I think maybe if we could try to locate a professional in the area.
Based upon my conversations with anyone that's, you know, for Rowe, for the trees that we've removed, when I've talked to Fisher, when I've talked to Davy Tree Service, the 3 that I spoke to this week, basic consensus in the industry is I will say the longer a dead ash tree stands, the more dangerous it becomes. It does not, and that's from a removal standpoint, because once you start to cut it, it tends to crumble. That does not mean that it'll fall any sooner than a tree with leaves when the wind blows.
Right, but you're right, it's more difficult to take down because it's much more dangerous and can cost a lot more too if you wait too long. I think ash trees can really go really dead within a year or two, much faster than some other trees from what I've heard, because the bugs are just...
The other concern too is that we got to make sure, what are we focusing on? We focus on main roads because we already have somewhat of a policy with high meadows, green meadows, of how we handle that. And this can't be used to be led into taking care of a situation that has been long said as being paid.
We do have a policy. We do have a policy for green meadows, high meadows.
I just want to make sure that this isn't being used to modify that policy.
We do have a policy in place for green meadows, high meadows.
It's been the policy since I've been here that Mr. Ray has used for at least the last 10 years that we do not remove wood or cut up trees other than opening the roadway and opening the sidewalk. Those trees belong to the homeowners at High Meadows, Green Meadows. And if something falls in the road, we'll cut it, but we leave the wood for them to take care of and remove. The only exception that I'm aware of has been the last storm and the volume that fell and the size of the branches. It was impossible to keep the roadway open unless it was removed. And it really came down to a safety issue in that storm just from the sheer volume.
Mr. Robertson mentions that same grandfather trees in High Meadows and Green Meadows.
Right. What I'm saying is that I'd like to still see that as part of whatever plan we put together, saying that this will not be something that we do because of what it's been grandfathered in.
Right.
For them to take
Right,
care
but do we have the question again? Do we have a written policy about trees?
Oh, I don't know. I thought you were saying we have a policy.
No, I was asking if we do have a policy.
No, that's why I'm saying that we need to make sure that we have something there saying, you know, we are not. I don't believe we do have a policy.
I think that there's something in it that was discussed and it's in the minutes or something.
From a minute standpoint, I think that there's.
Before I got here for High Meadows, Green Meadows.
But
because you just said that you don't want this new, the new information we're discussing, our new policy, to modify the old policy or be in conflict.
No, what I was getting at though is that taken away from what we've been following with High Meadows and Green Meadows because they have been grandfathered and there's a lot of trees in there and there was particular reasons. You know, I guess High Meadows, Green Meadows was one of those trees and the township didn't want to take care of it. I don't know the whole history behind it. But again, there's a high amount of trees in there that would put us responsible for. And, you know, we're getting in a situation where do we want to change what we've done in the past for that area as well? Again, the other thing too is also working at, are we looking at just main roads? Or are we just looking at main Orange, you know, in other words, Orange Road, Bell Canyon? Do we leave it just at those roads?
Right.
For the most part, excuse me, go ahead.
But the trees in the right-of-way at Green Meadows, High Meadows are pretty much the same situation as the trees in other right-of-ways. That there are existing trees in right-of-ways that aren't in subdivisions, and it doesn't matter if they're grandfathered in or not, they're still existing. And I'm not aware, I mean, it could be a written policy, but if we've been following an informal policy, I mean, I guess we should standardize the whole policy, but I don't find it to be any different if
So you're okay with going into High Meadows and Green Meadows, removing all the trees in there that are dead?
and if they're in the right-of-way. I don't think there are very many. I guess I think it should be on a complaint basis, possibly. I mean, I don't really know what's the right way to do this because we've never done it, but I would say if someone complains, I really like the counties. This is a good point I hadn't really thought of, but they said that they determined there were 220 ash trees that were dead, and it was determined that knowing the trees would eventually come down and for the safety of the traveling public, that they would go ahead and put that in the budget. And the county commissioners did support that, monitoring the roadways in future years. And that was kind of my idea that if they're going to come down anyway in the roadway, and if they present a hazard to the public, especially on the well-traveled roads, then we should take them down.
My number one complaint on trees are individual branches that hang over the right-of-way, either on West Orange, Bale Canyon, or Big Walnut. for the most part. And the rest of the tree could be alive, but that one branch is dead. And that's been my number one complaint that I get from residents. And that would be something that's not covered if we're removing dead ash trees. For me, I see the underlying question to be, is it the township's responsibility to remove these trees, or is it the homeowner for the right-of-way's responsibility to remove these trees? And I think if that question can be answered, then we can work into whatever policy there is.
Yeah, all I'm getting at is that also in High Meadows, Green Meadows, there's other issues involved because you have live trees that are stirring up the road and also the sidewalks, which are live, which means, does that mean because of safety reasons we go in and take down, if we're going to take over responsibility, all the trees in High Meadows, Green Meadows, and it's a safety concern in general, does that mean we take down live trees for the sidewalks now and other areas that are going to be common problems? I mean, that opens up a whole other door of discussions right there.
Yeah, that's
really
not
does.
like
I
So-
completely agree.
No, actually, people do, when they're uneven and it's icy out, accidents happen and they are severe.
Well, we
So
already do have a policy in place for
we
sidewalks.
do, from what I'm trying to get at, that opens up a whole other discussion on those back roads for that, because,
Right.
are we taking all responsibility? If that's gonna happen, then we're taking responsibility of all those trees at that point. And from there on, the homeowners are no longer involved in that, because that is now gonna be the policy from there on. So we will have the right to go in and take down a live tree if it causes a problem in the road, or if it causes a problem in the sidewalk. So these are things that need to be
It
discussed
could
on
be a
that side.
hazard, a falling hazard.
So,
We can define the hazards, and it could be a falling hazard.
so from that side, that opens up a whole other question. That's the reason why I'm saying, are we focusing on main roads here from the standpoint of Orange Road, Bill Canyon? Do we limit to that at that point?
I don't think
If we
you
do
can
open it
limit
up to those other areas, we have to take into consideration all those other elements as well.
Well, I don't think you can limit it. I would put certain roadways, I think it would have to be put in place for all the township roads, I think, just to be fair. But I would suggest that we not make a mountain out of a molehill and that we just develop a policy, and then when someone complains, then Ms. Hugh takes a look at it, and if it meets the criteria, then she
And
works on
I don't think
it.
anybody's trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. We're trying to say we need a policy in place and we agree upon that, but we got to make sure that we cover all the bases so that she does have something to refer back to, so that she understands what is it she can move forward with and what she
Right.
can't.
I would discuss falling hazards right now, and then if we'd like to discuss, I don't want to have this wait another year while we make it so all-inclusive. I mean, things like this.
Because it's going to make it, well, the reason being is because it's also going to make it difficult for her to take calls in and understand what the expectation is from us to say, okay, you can say it's a falling hazard, but again, it goes back to my question about the other hazards that exist in that area.
But what did the county decide? Did they have a written policy?
They're doing it by area.
So they are
Complaint
restricting
basis
the
is-
areas of what they're doing.
Correct.
So-
That by complaint basis would not only be a headache for the maintenance department and organizing and scheduling, but it will cost more because these bids are not based upon coming out and removing 3 trees on
Right.
Monday,
Mobilization.
6 trees on Friday, so many trees a couple weeks from there. They're based upon 300 and some miles of county roads that they start at A and they run the whole line of all the trees that have been marked,
That's $500 a tree. Was that the bid?
depending upon the size of the tree.
But we could just bid out, if we have a, like a framework to work in, and if it's gonna, normally this tree would be $700, and we can find someone to cut it down for that price or less, we could just use an individual company.
Well, I like that idea though, that saying, okay, fine, we're gonna go ahead and do that, but we're only gonna focus on Orange Road in this area, and we're gonna focus on Powell, well, Powell's a county road anyway, Bell Canyon, and those main roads, and just say, okay, we're gonna attack this road this time, we're gonna go ahead and move forward with it, the next time we're gonna do this road, and then just leave it at that.
And then what do you do for those people who already cut down their trees in the right of way that they own?
Yep, that's another question we have to address, the fact that,
No, the policy goes into effect the date we put it into effect. It's not retroactive. I mean, things change all the time, and people don't go back and,
but it's still gonna happen, people are still gonna call, I mean, we gotta take consideration for Ms. Hugh taking those calls, that it's gonna happen.
then we
So-
say it's a new policy. I mean, you gotta start somewhere.
Can I ask a question? How much do you anticipate you're going to be spending on this?
I ran new numbers based upon the
What I'm thinking
county
about
quotes.
is simply that if
And-
we're going to break
yeah.
your bid threshold, then we just simply need to
Well,
put together a bid.
But we would be using the bid from the county.
Okay, that's
So,
fine.
using the bids from the county and the tree counts that we had before, we did an average of $750 a tree in the previous count, where we had $52,500. I redid that with the lower amounts, at 50 trees at $400, which is 3 barber size for a 30-inch, and 10 trees at $1,000 for $30,000, which is less than what we had talked about with the 52.5. But again, that doesn't include any kind of traffic control, and, you know, time from the maintenance department. You know, that's no in-house dollar numbers or additional staff to kind of organize this, manage it. I mean, this is really a construction project to get those people, to monitor those people, to identify the trees, to move forward, to follow up, and to make sure that everything's done, and to get them paid. This is a big construction project.
Beth, just to follow up, it sounds like you're going to be below your bidding threshold. But if we find that we're going over that, before we piggyback on the county, we need to see the county's documents and make certain that they provided in there that other political subdivisions could participate in the contract. That's the requirement.
Okay.
You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little hoarse.
And Mr. Lincoln implied that we could do that, but it makes sense to double check the specs that they bid.
We probably need to see also how they got onto the homeowner's property, what kind of, I would think.
They're not on the
We're
homeowner's
not
property,
going
they're in the
on
right of way.
We're going right of way, right? Is that what we've been discussing?
And that would be a legal question, because on a lot of these roads, not so much Orange Road, but Vail Canyon, Big Walnut, West Orange, the older properties have not actually dedicated right-of-way. They're right-of-way easements, and so the homeowner owns to the center line of the road, and then there's a right-of-way easement over top of that. Mike and I have gone back and forth with this. I think that there's right-of-way language that gives us the right to be on there to cut that tree down. Mr. McCarthy's concerned that, you know, that homeowner could claim rights to that tree and say, I don't want it cut down, and actually charge us to cut it down. And if we're doing it for a health safety reason, it's got to come down. It's been deemed dangerous, so that's kind of one issue.
We're going to have to dust that off, but I do know there was case law that indicated those trees in the right of way on that type of a situation did belong to the homeowner, and if the county or the government wanted to take them, there was going to be a discussion. So we can go ahead and check the current status on that. But the short version to avoid that would be simply talk with the homeowner, let them know what's going on, get them to sign possibly that license authorizing you to come on there and take it off. Whether, you know, no matter what the law is at that point, we're covered with paving.
Right, and I know that.
We have that form already.
I know that people kept saying at the last meeting that the trees are our responsibility until it falls into the
No,
road.
that's the liability.
Liability.
The liability is not yours until it hits the paved surface.
Right, so this would be going a little bit above and beyond for the safety of residents, but I mean, there's a lot of things that Ohio Revised Code doesn't mandate. It doesn't require parks, it doesn't require bike trails. I mean, there's a lot of amenities that our township residents, I think, deserve that we're not required to provide. And I just think this is one.
As a question, kind of referencing Mr. Quigley's comment that I'm going to get calls, no matter what, I'm going to get calls. And I'm hoping that the policy helps to answer those calls. But one call I definitely anticipate is that the sidewalk is in the right of way. If they are responsible for their sidewalk, why aren't they responsible for the trees? Because it's kind of split. If you have outside of High Meadows, Green Meadows, if you have a sidewalk, you're not allowed to plant trees in the right of way. If you don't have a sidewalk, you can have trees in the right of way. So if the sidewalk people have to replace their sidewalk, why don't the tree people have to cut down their own trees?
Well, it's also the fact who maintains that sidewalk and replaces it when it is damaged. I mean, if it becomes an issue, then
Right.
from a safety standpoint, it's an easement, so then whose responsibility is? So it does open up another whole discussion and issues, so.
And we have a policy on sidewalks.
The sidewalk policy was based on the fact that, excuse me, you'll have to excuse me, I'm getting old. Please excuse me. But it was based on the fact that we can proceed with sidewalks by assessment. And maybe we can take a quick look and see if there's any basis to come up with that idea here.
And we could put it, I like the idea of putting something on the listserv, because there might be a company that.
Or an individual.
Or an
I've
individual
known
who
of
would.
communities where there was a retired horticulturalist.
But sometimes when things are put on a bid, sometimes when things are put on a bid, it ends up being more expensive sometimes because when there's such a range of things. It's not like a truck with these certain options. There's so many different calibers, and I don't know.
Just to be honest, I mean, with as many trees as I've taken down throughout my career versus what we've done here at the township, I've never seen prices as low as what Tree Barber's projecting. I mean, they're taking a 30-inch tree and removing it from the site for $400.
Yeah, that's a good price.
So, I mean, this is kind of selfish, but to have to bid every complaint or put out on listserv every single item, it's very time consuming.
No, not every single item, I meant as a whole, but originally weren't we talking $750 per tree?
And that's been our experience with Davy and Fisher when we bring them in on individual trees.
But you also look at the volume now.
Yeah, you have to remember that this was bid by the county, so this is huge volume, going along the roadside in a very methodical removal method. If it's marked, you know, they don't have to send their A-team out for this kind of removal.
Exactly.
So.
Well, can you look into that more? What we're gonna have her open to the language, or?
I mean, there's something, I mean, it doesn't have to be complex. It just says, you know, these are the guidelines that we're following. Just something to make it easy when someone calls you, that you can say, this is what we're following for dropping these trees right now. Whether it's, if you say it's just ash trees, if it's just.
I think it should be just the ash trees. That's the whole epidemic that's caused this. And if you leave it to just because of the epidemic, the problem, then we can stay away from the sidewalks and other right-of-way issues.
I'm actually, I would agree with that. I mean, that was one of the things that, I thought about before too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that makes sense of focusing in on the fact that it is just.
That was really good. Yeah, it is. Mike, can we limit a policy to the type of tree and also which roads we would cover?
Well, we'll try. If you think about it, with the ADA ramps, Beth will remember this, Meadows, Green Meadows, it was really quite a project. And what the trustees did, in view of the fact they didn't have unlimited resources, was they indicated that when we repaved, resurfaced an area, we would upgrade the ADA ramps in that area at that time. So I think you've got to cut your cloth to fit your suit, to a degree, and that really lies in the discretion of the board.
So we couldn't put that limitation.
Well, you're assuming you're assuming a service that you're not really responsible for. So I suppose you've got a fair amount of discretion on how to do it. I would suggest the board listening to Beth, and I'll just say this from the perspective of having, watched bidding and bids for quite a while. I do think there's probably some good, and some of the other comments of the board members, I think there's some good thought in the fact that if you establish a program, maybe approach it by area, or road sections, or whatever prioritization maybe the county suggests to you, you'll probably find it'll be a more methodical result than just kind of and I understand, but the sidewalk policy, by the way, is complaint.
It is complaint.
It is triggered by complaint. So I'm not saying it can't be done, but again, you gotta remember
that complaint triggers a letter from me to the homeowner to say, replace your sidewalk.
Right. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a different animal in that sense. Right. We might, I don't know if you guys, maybe we'll just do a quick check on maintenance and assessment.
I think that the trees are more, to me the trees are, I guess sidewalks can be a hazard, but to me trees are more of a hazard. But,
believe me, the board spent quite a while on that side.
But he had said someone was going to check on the language of the county bid specs to see if we were authorized to do that. You're doing that, right?
I'll get the specs.
That
If
was
you
what
get
I
the
was-
spec, I'll be happy to go
That was
through
why
it.
I was.
I know what I'm
referring
looking
to a
for.
minute ago.
What I would say is right
Often
now,
county does put that.
what I would say, from, like, again, to the points of mobilization and being methodical about it, what I would do is say it's ash trees, focus on the main roads right now.
Now, what do you do in a case like Daryl? You know, he's got the right of ways, and then they go all the way back into your yard, don't you? Have some-
Yeah, they were out Thursday and actually measured and put stakes there, and all the trees are in the easement.
So it would cover you then, more or less.
But if there's trees back further in the yard,
No,
No,
it would be an easement only.
Right, in the right way. Mr., do
Right,
you want to give me
right.
your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah. First name is Darrell, D-A-R-H-L. H-L-S-C-H-O-E-N-L-E-B. I signed the register over there. It's 1717 East Orange Road, just across the street. Yeah, my main concern was safety, you know, stuff like that. I'd cut them down, but it's so close to the telephone wires, I don't want to be responsible for the wires.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to start with major roads if we can do that, and the ones in the right of way. And maybe it would be good then to just go into different areas and just have them done. Beth, how many did you say there were? You counted one time?
We counted 50.
50? Okay.
And I appreciate your patience.
That does
The
not
problem
include
is
high
that-
meadows
and I think you hopefully understand that.
Right.
There's a lot of things we gotta think about, because it will trigger so many other issues and
Oh, yeah,
concerns
yeah.
and.
Right, you make a
people come in-
general statement here, it's gonna cover a lot of stuff.
Right, so, and I appreciate your patience. so
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, you could approach it as just the ash epidemic,
Yeah.
you know.
I like that idea, that if we can do it, yeah.
And I submitted an estimate from Timberland for them to come out and actually cut them down and put them in the yard. It was like $750, I
Yeah.
think. And then they'd grind the stumps.
Which was sort of, it was sort of shocking to see that, because we get a quote from them, and it's
Yeah.
like 4 times as much.
Well, that's just them cutting it down.
Right.
And then I have to cut everything up and haul it off, so.
Yeah, I think he said $300 more to haul it off, but
Well,
I don't know how that.
I thought it was a pretty good estimate. so.
It wasn't.
No, actually,
It
I've
was
had
a
a lot of
great
neighbors-
estimate.
I've had a lot of
They
neighbors drop
didn't
trees.
give us the same estimate
Yeah.
back here.
I've had a lot
to
of
fell
bulk
those
thing,
trees.
you know.
Yeah, I had a lot of neighbors that dropped trees over the last year, and that's
Yeah.
the cheapest I've ever seen it. But to your point, I think, you know, as Trustee Toronto said, let's stick with ash trees, let's be methodical about it, let's you know, focus on the main roads right now. And just, you know, make, it's an easement, if it's in one of those situations where it's the property of Bell Canyon, that we contact the homeowner and that we have them sign that waiver, more or less, that license.
And then Beth, maybe Beth could make an area map, like what areas, if we're gonna do it by area.
We'd have to do an inventory like the county did with an address and mark the trees. Is the board looking at a specific area this year and then a different area next year? Or are we looking to try to stay within a dollar amount this year? And then,
But I guess we probably wouldn't know until, yeah, that's a good question, and it'd be hard to figure out the dollar amount until we get it all quoted anyway.
And what could- if you had different areas, could you, if you had like 6 areas in the township, could you get each of those? You could, if you had just 6 areas, you could ask for a separate, you could ask for a quote. If we're gonna have 100 areas, no.
But again, it goes, yeah, and that's the reason why we're saying to do it in sections, so if you did it by Orange Road and Bell Canyon, or whatever roads
Yeah,
are
you
close by,
she would have
get
it
two
better.
together.
I mean, if we had a dollar amount, Aaron and I would stop spraying trees at,
Well, but the
you know,
problem is
whatever
some
that
of the
number
trees,
is.
some of the trees have been dead for 3 or 4 years, and those are more of an imminent danger versus some that have just recently died. I wouldn't wanna, I mean, if they're $500,
I would just say, go ahead and sit down there and take a look at what the best way for a mobilization standpoint, and how many trees, and maybe just come up with, if it's Orange Road and whatever else is adjacent to it.
She also doesn't have anything budgeted for this year.
Right, so we gotta be careful this year, so I mean, I would say, we definitely need for budgeting coming up, we would need to put aside for next year, but maybe we just focus on one road this year, or another road, or a combination of roads,
And maybe focus on the ones that have received complaints first.
But if you can put that together, I mean, and just like we said earlier, like the ash trees, only in the right of way. And I don't know if you want to work with Ms. Toronto on that, just writing that up, so it's something formal for you to follow.
Joel, if I can get some assistance from you or Connie as to, does this come from capital? Does this come from roads? I know there's no money in roads to move around for this.
I mean,
So-
the discretion of the board, they can pull the money
Okay.
in general if they choose, but.
Well, is it, are we gonna move some money around and do some supplementals? Or are we gonna reappropriate additional funds specifically for this?
Those are the two options, you could reappropriate additional funds.
But if I can work maybe either with you or Connie to see what kind of supplementals we could do before we go into a full reappropriation.
Sure.
What was the highest price on the bid specs
Um,
per tree? What
from
was the range?
Tree barber, it
2,500.
ranges, and from tree barber, an 18-inch size is $200. And remember, I mean, this is a public meeting. These are numbers specifically based on them doing volume for the county.
Yeah, right.
30-inch was $400, a 48-inch was $800, and a 60-inch is $1,200.
And that might, I mean, I know are very busy, always, so this would take a lot of work, but if we could create an inventory of how many of these smaller trees, because if all 50 of them, for example, were $500 a piece, that would be $25,000. It might be a good idea to figure out how many we have, because,
Yeah, well, I think our estimate, the revised estimate that I did at $400 for 50 trees and 10 trees at $1,000, not including traffic control. We would have to schedule to do our own traffic control. And there are some areas where we may even need to look at maybe some special duty officers. If we're doing some significant tree removal in an area, I've been out in the middle of the road when, the stop sign has been there, and they will go off the road and around you, and they will hit the stop sign that's out in your arm as you jump back. So, with the loud equipment that's going on and everything that's happening, there are probably some areas, especially if we're getting close to intersections or blind corners, where we may want additional safety precautions. But I do think that for what we've identified, I do think that the $30,000 is a pretty good number. The question is, do we want to try to do that this year and look for those kind of funds, or are we looking for a portion of that?
I would say, again, just going back, sit down with Aaron and find the main arteries, the main roads, like Orange Road, Bill Canyon.
When that's pretty much where this estimate
So
came
that's
from.
the
We didn't go
case,
into the
you didn't do
neighborhoods.
it, okay, so if that's the
Yeah.
case, then.
I mean, this may include, probably includes Shanahan, North, Vale.
Short?
I do not think he went down Short. Basically, the main arteries, so Orange Road, East and West, and Big Walnut would be the general areas. We didn't go into, it doesn't include Arnold Street, doesn't include Short Street, doesn't include some of the offshoots down off of Powell that would have trees in the right of way, and some areas like that. A lot of the developments don't, but.
Well, that's what I would just focus on right now.
and maybe some areas where the trees are more dead than others. I don't know if some areas it seems like it hit earlier than later.
I don't know that that's going to be easy to do without an arborist.
If you can, but it seems like when it hit one area, it just pretty much decimated everything you've done. So when are we're gonna discuss that again in the
We
next
have to
meeting?
come up with a language that we're going to use. And,
I think a lot of it's been, just right now we said ash trees only in the right of way.
We'll do a
These certain
license
roads that
agreement
we're
if
doing,
they
I would
are
just stick
to
with
the
those
center
certain
line.
roads right now, that's it.
Do you want to just have a consensus on that?
But of course, then you need to go out and mark them and then get an actual estimate to bring back to us anyway.
Yeah, well, actually, The first section that I would like to start on would be a road that doesn't have people that own to the center line. And I'd have to look at Dallas for, you know, some time to kind of start mapping that out. I don't know that there's any big sections of those roads that I mentioned that have that.
So she's gonna, so what's the
Because
next?
that, at least that would speed up the process of not having to contact everybody, get the license agreement.
Are you gonna work with her on that?
Yes. So we're gonna, what's the next, just so we all understand what we're doing?
I would say that definitely by, could you get those quotes or get them marked? How much time do you need?
Well, I can get the bid specs in the next day.
How much time would you need to go out and mark the trees that you're looking at? I mean, sort of that's what the county
Aaron and
does,
I
go
can
out.
do that this week.
So we can bring this again to the next meeting.
Yeah. Are we
On the
gonna
27th.
physically mark the trees? Because that's gonna raise a lot of questions. That
Well-
it'll bring 100 calls in.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could, everybody's on a listserv anyway, but, I mean, it's more or less what the county did. They went around, it doesn't have to be a huge mark.
Yeah, you should mark them, that's a good point.
That's the only way you're gonna be able to get really,
What's the only way I'm gonna be able to tell what we mark
yeah.
later on? And it's gonna have to be with spray paint, because
Yeah.
ribbon just doesn't stay.
Just use a bright pink, it has a lot of good meaning for it, so people won't complain about
Make it a certain shape.
Pink, we're using a
it.
dot.
Yeah.
So you're gonna come back with like maybe you're gonna work to get the bid specs and then, come back with like a map of where the trees are and how big they
More of
are.
an inventory.
Inventory, right? And then you're gonna, then we're gonna decide maybe what areas we'd like to do.
Depending on the cost, yeah, I mean, I would hope that you'd be able to get them marked and just get an
Then we
idea.
can discuss, and, because I think it would be
Have them come through,
hard for
maybe.
you to judge what we wanna do on your own.
Can I get some special poison ivy clothes?
That and that.
Just look at that one.
So at the next, the meeting on, the first meeting in September, is that what we're talking?
Yes.
Was it the 4th, September 4th? Yes, it's a Tuesday.
Any other questions?
Thank you for getting all that information back.
Thank you, Beth. Next item is the website listserv notices. This sort of leads into the whole website proposals, but we don't have all the proposals in right now. The key thing to acknowledge, and this is the reason why we're looking at website proposals, is because we've had some issues with the listserv that's limited us to putting too many out. So that's more or less, this is what Nancy put together, saying this is what we're currently putting on the listserv, but we have to be aware that if we put too much out, it's going to cause problems with our current listserv, and until we get it updated, we got to be careful. So this list was put out of all the items that we do send out on the listserv, if anybody's part of the listserv. And if there's anything that's not on here that someone wants on there, one of the board members, just mention it to Nancy, but also keep in mind that let's try to be careful of how much we put on there. I mean, there's a lot of important things, but there's also a lot of ancillary things. So until we get this website updated to a more robust system, just try to be careful of what we put out there.
Right, and this just kind of limits that to accommodate our limitations right now. But it also kind of reminds me of what we need to put on, reminds Nancy to get with me to put it on. And so just kind of has puts it out there that, you know, these kind of items need to go on the listserv and website.
But if there's any that the board members would like to add, just mention it to Nancy. Just keep in mind, as you mentioned, that we are trying to get that fixed with a new proposal for.
Now, when is that, so are we getting a new provider for the website?
It will be a new provider.
To actually run the whole website and the listserv?
It will be both the website and listserv.
Did you read that thing from Civics Plus?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. But, so we'd still have the IT person?
No, it'd be through an entire,
It'd be
different- the
everything.
website will be handled through an entire different service.
Right, but who handles like the internal IT?
Nancy will still be able to do that.
Yeah, the IT services for the computers and
Yeah.
stuff will still be
Info-linked.
That was my question, okay. So this is just for that, so this is beyond their capabilities
Yes.
right now, right? 'Cause they're-
Yeah, I mean, the listserv it's more the listserv side of it. We've been fortunate enough, InfoLink has worked really, it was a great transition. It got us from a very antiquated system to the next step, and then knowing that we've, in that last year, we've really seen what we can do, we want to do more, so this is what we're going to have to do is take that jump into a more robust system. Unfortunately, it's going to cost a little bit more, but that will help us be a little bit more effective in communication with the public.
How long have we had InfoLink?
The InfoLink website's been over a year now.
I mean, at them as a provider.
It's been 2 years.
2.5 years.
Right. One of the driving factors behind them is the fact that they're one of the few companies that can actually support the fire department software. Because that was a very challenging effort to find someone that can, was it pretty much SARCOM and InfoLink really too. So, which is very important for.
Because it's special fire
Yeah,
software.
like software package, firehouse.
And then this proposal, it says that Orange Township has put in mind a procedure for placing items on the listserv. And there's a lot of different criteria, like Orange Township will try to not send out more than 3 to 4 notices a week and not more than 1 per day. Like items or items that directly relate to each other may be placed in the same notice. And some other things. So I don't see that Orange Township has put this procedure into place, because I don't remember voting on this.
This is something that we're just bringing together, saying this is what we're trying to.
So this isn't actually final, this is just a draft?
No, this is just essentially saying this is what we're trying to achieve right now in the midterm before we get into a more robust system. But we have limitations, and what this is doing is demonstrating to the board as well that there are limitations, and just trying to make sure everybody understand that with the current system, we have to be a little bit careful about what we do, because if we send too many items at once in one day, spam filters start picking it up, it becomes a whole other issue that we got to deal with. People won't get their emails because they'll end up being in the spam folder. And so there's a lot of different things we got to take in mind here. So this is what we're trying to outline, saying, if we can, let's try to follow this.
So this is so when it says Orange Township has put into place a procedure, we really haven't done that.
No, that's pretty much what's on the agenda, is this proposal, to see if you have anything to add, any comments, any questions.
This is a draft. Okay, so this is a draft, it's not binding, and we're not following this right now.
Well, a
lot of this draft is based off of what we've been doing. So that's what they did, is put this together, saying these are all the items that we have been putting out. This is the reason why we've been cautious about what we've been putting out. So this is now a formalized, as you mentioned, a draft, but more of a formalized writing, so everybody understands what's being done. And then also, as you pointed out, a reminder to Nancy and yourself of the items that are going on.
Yeah, and everybody else. I mean, in the past, typically what we've done is that we've talked about it at a trustee meeting, and someone has said, let's put this on the listserv,
Right.
or we've talked about something in a liaison meeting or something and said, let's put it on the listserv. And this just kind of formalizes that a little bit in a way that kind of gives Nancy and Ms. Mesmer kind of the ability to prioritize things if multiple things are coming up for the limitations that we currently have. And then once we get into a new system that doesn't have those limitations, we won't have to deal with issues like only sending out one a day or prioritizing them or anything like that.
Yeah, I got the 2, we sent out 2 that one Friday, and I did get both of them. They were 4 hours apart, and that worked.
Right.
But I would like to add to this policy that all items that are placed on the listserv are copied to the trustees for their feedback before placing it on the listserv, with a limitation like, we'd like to send this out tomorrow, get back with me by 3 o'clock or something if you have a change, and if we don't respond, then we don't respond. Because some of them, I'd like to take a look at those before they're sent. I asked for that a few months ago. And that way all 3 of us can take a look, and if it's something that we have knowledge on, we can add to it. And if it's something we don't, we just...
I mean, I trust the department heads that they're putting out information.
When typically I review a lot of the stuff that goes out with my liaison. So, we've kind of talked about it, or it's in the same format that it has gone out in the past. with
Wow.
dates, et
That's
cetera.
another ballgame.
you know,
It's not a matter of trust, that's not what it is. We're elected to make sure
All I'm
things are
saying is
sent
that,
out.
all I'm saying is that from my standpoint, I don't need to review every single one of them because I believe that not only the liaisons, but the department heads are doing what they think that the public needs. But if you want to review them all, as you pointed out, with the time frame.
With the time frame,
so
right,
that
and
you
if
can see
someone,
it.
exactly, someone doesn't respond back, then they don't hold up the process. But, I mean, I was gonna request they are all sent to me, but that would seem unfair, so I suggested that they be sent to all board members. 'Cause in the past, my listserv notices regarding the fire issues have actually been edited by trustees who are not the liaison to that department, so I don't see that being a liaison really is relevant. I think we should all be able to look at each other's listserv notices.
I would just ask with that, a lot of them are time sensitive, and I gotta be honest, you know, it's not unusual for me to go in the morning and remember that this needs to go out today, and tell Nancy this, you know, please put this on the listserv. And, you know, she's been great about, you know, rearranging her schedule to do that, to meet mine, because, you know, I've got it on my calendar, but it just, you know, sometimes we don't have that enough time for that
Right, well,
kind of
that's why she
foresight.
put a limit, like if she came in and you said 8 in the morning, this needs to go out today, Nancy could say, hey, we're putting this out. And for certain ones, like watering restrictions, there could be standardized language, but she could say, hey, I need this back by noon. I'm sure that wouldn't happen every time, and, you know.
But then the other question would be, if there's conflicting comments of what should be included by the trustees, what takes precedent, how does that get worked out? And that just adds all that multiple time to
Yeah.
something that's already time sensitive.
That happened early in the year when I had a listserv notice going out about our open house, and one of the trustees overruled everything that I wanted in that and went with it. So I guess if it got to that point where that occurred, then we would discuss it at a meeting. But I don't see most of these being very controversial at all. I mean, maybe someone, and another thing is if we're really, say you're the parks liaison, you're really used to seeing things ordered a certain way, it would help to have an extra set of eyes kind of thinking outside the box with an idea, and vice versa with fire.
I really don't want to slow down the process, but if, you know, if that's what one of the board members want to do, to make sure that's fine,
If there's enough time to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right, if there is, and there won't always be, but.
So if there's any requests for modification on this, please talk to Nancy. Again, just keeping in mind that, you know, we have some limitations right now.
And how long do you think it will be before do you have any projected timeframe for the new provider?
We're just looking for one more quote right now, and hopefully we'll have that quote in front of the board. It will take any developer for a website, because we'll probably want to hand it over and make sure they port all the information over in the same pages, so it'll take them some development time. So we would hopefully like to have something completed by the end of this year as a target frame.
Okay, and then if we have more suggestions for this draft document, then.
Mention it to Nancy, and as all I ask is just keep in mind that right now we have limitations, so I don't want to overload the listserv right now, so.
And who created this document?
Nancy put it together.
All right.
Moving on to the Innovation Fund Grant Support Resolution. I believe Ms. Mesmer sent out all the information on Innovation Grant. Did you want to say anything in regards to that?
We are at a point that the fire chiefs have collaborated on the scope. They're finalizing that. I think the Delaware County Commissioners are still studying it. They would like to have a resolution in place from anyone interested in participating so that we can meet the September 4th filing deadline.
Chief, did you have any thoughts on this study?
The only thing I've got to say is that, you know, there's been a discussion over several years, probably 30 years, about who provides EMS. Should it be fire-based or should it be Delaware County EMS? This is going to be a study to tell us which way we should go.
So it's either or, not collaborative?
I'm sorry?
It would be either or, not a collaborative effort to bring,
We're hoping to convince all of the fire chiefs to be involved. At this point, there are certain participants, and we feel that there's a time to get this into the state of Ohio for a grant. The time is limited. We hope to get, as I said, we hope to have everybody participate. At this time, there are probably 6, and we're still looking for more. If we decide to submit the resolution tonight, there are other departments that have not made a decision. They can join us later, so it will work to our advantage.
okay,
All right?
thank you. Good.
I'm good. Any other questions?
No.
Whereas a countywide evaluation study of EMS services has been proposed, and whereas the Orange Township Board of Township Trustees is always open to studying opportunities to ensure the more efficient use of tax monies through cooperation with other entities. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Township Trustees of Orange Township, Delaware County, Ohio, the following resolution is adopted. Section 1, the Board supports the filing of Local Government Innovation Fund grant application for Delaware County and its participating political subdivisions to seek funding for the purpose of an evaluative county-wide study of EMS services. Section 2, the Township Fiscal Officer is requested to deliver a copy of this resolution of support to the Fire Chief for appropriate dissemination as soon as possible.
Okay.
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Franco?
Yes.
Ms. Knapp?
Yes.
Moving on to the Fiscal Officer report, we have 2 items. A then and now purchase order and the June financials. I'm going to turn it over to the Fiscal Officer.
Mr. Chair, please, I do want to ask the board or the chair if we could reopen the Ohio Revised Code 1347.05 discussion on the language to add to the employees handbook.
Yeah.
But we can't discuss that without added to the agenda. We're not ready to.
That was, I mentioned at the Gale that we sort of missed it, that should have been on the agenda.
Do you have information you can email us?
That was one of the things that.
When was that?
I emailed an email.
What day was it?
To you.
How long ago? Well, I didn't see it on the agenda, so I probably didn't look at it.
And the information is in the resolution.
It was tabled last meeting. Mary Ann, can you make sure that it is on the agenda at the next meeting, for sure? And that all information has been sent out regarding it?
Is the audit completed?
No, that was the email I forwarded concerning that conversation regarding this.
When is it expected to be done?
I don't know. I mean, they're completed in-house, they're not finished drafting it.
I mean, we could, we're having a meeting on Monday, we could do it, have a special meeting right before that.
I think the meeting's going to be pretty lengthy as it is. And,
Do you think it'll be a long discussion for this?
No, but as Mr. Spitzer just pointed out, he's not going to be there. So.
Oh, you're not? I'm sorry. I was trying to move it up. So we'll discuss September 4th.
Yeah.
7
p.m. Oh, I'll be there.
Oh, you will be?
I thought it was Thursday, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if it was something that's going to take 15 minutes, and would you rather discuss it Monday or wait until the 4th?
The 4th is fine.
All right.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Just make sure it's on there, please. Thank you.
The 2 items listed when we received our tax disbursement. In August, they automatically deduct the county health department tax settlement that each township has to pay, and we just need the then and now to cover that. And then I did want to make a point, because it has to be done by purchase order, we can no longer just take that as an automatic deduction. And I did want to point out, Ms. Knapp previously brought up reconciliation notes on the bank reconciliation, and
What was that?
It is due to payroll, and what we've done in working with HR Butler, because right now the way the payroll set up through HR Butler is that they write checks off of our account to cover our taxes. Sometimes those clear in the current month, sometimes they clear in subsequent months. depending on when they pay those taxes. So we've worked with HR Butler, they're gonna go ahead and pound the entire payroll, including taxes, to cover that in one payment, because it's been kind of messing up the reconciliation reports and whatnot, so I just want to make that point about, since that's on the agenda under June financials, I just want to make that point.
It is on the agenda?
Under June financials.
That's part of it?
You're referring to the note under reconciliation notes, the payroll taxes and the payroll checks,
Yes,
the 11,996.
yes, and for example, those could have been deducted in UAN in May or April, but they're not clearing the account until June. So it's causing that to fluctuate in terms of the reconciliation. So we work with HR to have them impound the entire payroll amount.
So you won't have that indication in this?
Including taxes. Because right now they impound the actual payroll and then write for tax purposes off our account.
When does
Now
that,
they're gonna impound the whole thing.
when does that start? Immediately?
It already started.
Any questions on the two items?
And then one other note, and the chiefs left, I wish they were here, and I did discuss it with them, but in speaking with the state auditor and the county auditor, just completed the certificate of estimated resources, and
Is this on the agenda? Is this part of June?
I generally let, the same thing I do if Tom was here or Mr. Gladman, let them speak for the department.
Well, I'm just making sure if that's something I need to respond to. Not ready for.
And the dire fact of the certificate of estimated resources is that we had to put, when we estimate 2013 income on there, we had to put 0 for fire income.
Right.
So that was kind of alarming, just because it was the first time I've ever, in 5 years, have put 0 for revenue. So.
Why did I have to do that?
Because the current levy ends at the end of this year. If the 2013 levy does not pass, it's 0. So that estimate has to reflect the fact that we don't have guaranteed money coming in 2013. So it's reflecting that. In the event the levy passes, we'll file an amendment after the election date and update that.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Joel. With that, I'd like to make a motion to retroactively approve a then and now purchase order to Delaware County Auditor in the amount of $23,153 for the county health department fee amount deducted from the second half tax settlement.
Second?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Mr. Anto?
Yes.
Ms. Now?
Yes.
Everybody review the June financials?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
Is there a consensus to go ahead and approve the financials?
Yes.
Final item is the minutes for July 30th. Any changes?
No.
Trustee
No.
Matt?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the July 30th, 2012 minutes as presented.
Second?
Mr. Quigley?
Yes?
Mr. Anto?
Yes.
Ms. Now?
No other business, so this meeting is adjourned.